says his visit is a proactive step towards addressing this issue and ensuring that these individuals have the necessary documentation. He adds that this is efforts part of the government's commitment to ensuring that all citizens have access to essential services.
It so happened that I've got a program which started in August 2022, where I go from villages, especially rural villages, because those problems they were mentioning there are very common for rural villages for various reasons, and some of them are caused by a lack of knowledge of procedures in government. That's why I started in 2022 going to several municipalities, royal families, meeting chiefs, councillors, ministers of religion, social workers to brief them about procedures so that they understand.
The City of Tshwane Executive Mayor Saleha Brink has reiterated his commitment to the metro ahead of the national elections next month. There was speculation that Brink could be leaving the metro after his name had appeared in both the DA's national and provincial lists to the IEC. Brink, who has been at the helm of the capital for a year, says while the political landscape could change after the elections, the coalition in the metro is at its strongest. He made the comments while delivering his second State of the City address in Pretoria.
The question of the effectiveness of coalitions will no doubt be raised. In Tshwane, we have shown that in the face of extremely difficult circumstances, we can continue to work together, continue to build. I am not complacent for a single second about this, but I am confident in the stability that we have been able to achieve in the city, and I'm committed to working with colleagues, including the opposition, to demonstrate that coalitions can in fact work, and maybe, just maybe, we can provide a model for that for Gauteng and the rest of the country.
Further afield, and finally, the US Senate has swiftly rejected a partisan attempt to dismiss the Secretary for Homeland Security. In February, the Republican majority in the House of Representatives had narrowly approved 2 articles of impeachment, accusing him of willfully refusing to enforce border laws and lying to Congress. The Republican Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, has blamed the Democrats and the Senate Majority Leader for the outcome.
There should have been a full trial. The American people should have been able to see the evidence and evaluate for themselves what I think they know already intuitively, and that is that Secretary Mayorkas had a fantastical breach of duty. I mean, he breached his constitutional responsibility. He's openly defied the federal law on immigration and the will of Congress. And the idea that the Senate, and under Chuck Schumer's leadership, voted on party lines to not even allow the American people to evaluate the evidence is shameful.
Recapping the top story, the Gauteng High Court in Pretoria has ordered the Office of the Public Protector furnish former Public Protector, Advocate Busisiwe Mkhwebane, with the records and the reasons that informed the decision not to pay the 10 million rand gratuity by tomorrow. For SAFM News, I am Anne Musa.
A very good afternoon to you. Welcome to your SFM Sport. And there's the rugby with the Springboks in the spotlight again, aiming to add more silverware to their cabinet at the SA Sports Awards. Plus, speedster Akani Simbine blazing to victory in the 100-metre heats, setting the track alight at the SA Athletics Championships. Don't miss the full stories at around 3:30.
SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide.
The Royal Club says victory on home soil is non-negotiable, but Ghanaian outfit Dreams FC can smell maximum points as a dream come true. The capital of Egypt faces the capital of Ghana. This is the first leg of the Total Energies CAF Confederation Cup semi-final. Catch Zamalek Sporting Club up against Dreams FC live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4 this Sunday, 21 April at 6 p.m. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Hashtag We Love It Here. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
The Northwest Legislature's Portfolio Committee on Premier, Finance, Corporate Governance, Human Settlement and Traditional Affairs, led by Honorable Aaron Motswana, will embark on public hearings throughout the province on the Division of Revenue Bill B4 2024 and Northwest Appropriation Bill on the 19th April at Ngakamudil Mulema District in Tukrani Community Hall, at Dr. Kenneth Kaunda District in Banquet Hall Potchefstroom, at Dr. Ruth Somuti Mompati in Kismet Community Hall in Vryburg, at Bojanala District in Moretele Municipality Hall. All hearings start at 10.
Getting more
money into your pockets has never been this simple and exciting. With SABC's new Simple Watch and Win game show, you can get more Zaga in your pockets. Catch more Zaga every weekday on SABC 1 at 9 p.m. You could win your share of 50,000 Rand. All you have to do to win is give the correct answer for the day. Just dial star 120 star 332# to register and play. The cost is R1.50 per minute. You could win big with more Zaga. Only on SABC 1.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
So giving like this thumbs up today, because of Siya Kolisi. It was named, you heard about it yesterday in the Times Magazine, as one of the 100 most influential people in the world, right? Now, that's after he led the Springboks to victory in the 2023 World Cup. And of course, 4 years before that. So in fact, that's unprecedented, certainly from a South African perspective, not just winning 2 World Cups, but being the captain of the team both times round. So, if nothing else, that alone should ensure that Siya Kolisi would be, his name would be marked as immortal in terms of legacy, no matter what. But there is more, right? As a captain of the Springbok team and as a black captain of the Springbok team, that carries even more weight. Remember that rugby in South Africa historically is very much a white sport and very much an Afrikaner sport, okay? So you need to fit into a system to excel, to get to where you want to be, right? And I remember when he was appointed, there was huge, uproars. Often he's the case, like Siya Kolisi, captain of the Springboks, is just another one of those, token representations that just there to make things look right and feel right. But, very quickly, he didn't just play and then become the captain. Very quickly, he established himself. And, my sense about him, therefore, as a player, is a fabulous player. But I think as a captain, he just says all the right things. He plays the game right on the field. He plays the game right off the field in the press conferences. He's ambassadorial, like absolutely ambassadorial about it. He knows what to say. He knows how to say it. He has a sense of empathy for the people, for the players that he leads, for the coaches, and for the country that he represents, right? He comes across always as a person with a very, very clear sense of purpose, right? And he knows this, as he said it at the World Cup. A win for the Springboks is a win for South Africa. He's absolutely in tune with that, right? Now, that alone puts him at an elite level of sports people from any sport in the world, right? But, there's even more to that. If you're going back to his own story, and it's even more remarkable, that, he comes from Gwedi Township in the Eastern Cape, right? An impoverished community with, for all intents and purposes, he should not have made it. But he got lucky. He started playing rugby, and the school headmaster and himself connected with each other, and he did pretty well. And the next thing, a coach saw to it that he got to Grey College in the Free State. And that was his absolute door opener to where he is today, as a person who is now recognized anywhere he goes around the world, isn't it? So that is him. This journey of a lifetime, and the Time magazine endorsement is not just an endorsement of that he needed. In fact, he's endorsing them in terms of his own stature. And I think we as South Africans need to understand his place in our history, because the reality, his journey of a lifetime, Siya Kolisi's, is a symbol of what's possible in South Africa, no matter where you come from. But sadly, it's also a symbol of how often things are just impossible, because he's not the norm. For everyone like Siya Kolisi that makes it big and globally, coming from Gwedi Township, there are thousands who don't even get on the bus. Forget the journey. They don't even get on the bus. Never, ever, ever. But for now, we'll stay with where he is and what he means. And the point is obvious. Siya Kolisi he's a champion. He's a champion South African. and he's a global champion. I'm Ashraf Garda, and that's my point.
SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide. Leading the conversation. The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda.
Help us understand when there's been this hashtag World War III. Is that over speculative, over dramatic or not?
I think it is over dramatic. The attack by Iran of Israel over the weekend, it was an agreed move by Iran and the allies of Israel. Before Iran sent those 300 plus drones and missiles into Israel, it did forewarn the United States and some of the Western countries that it was going to do that because of two things. One is internal pressure that Iran faced after its embassy was attacked on the 1st of April by Israel. But two, Iran has got the right to defend itself. So this time around was the first time that it's done so. But it was very calculative, measured.
Thembisa Fakude, speaking on behalf of his position as the Senior Research Fellow at the Africa-Asia Dialogues, AfriCID.
The National Pulse, weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m. X at SFM Radio and at Ashraf Garda.
Right, so there we are. This is the National Pulse. Great that you connect with me on the show and my team, and hopefully you will stay connected. Fingers on the pulse, mind on the pulse for the next 3 hours or so as we pick up the issues that impact our country and therefore the national pulse. But very often we touch on issues that reflect the global pulse as well, and sometimes they converge as well. Now, I chatted about Siya Kolisi. I am pretty sure... without talking about the narrow rugby angle, but I'm looking at his impact as a South African globally. Okay, you have any thoughts you want to say about what I've said, and maybe what you want to say about opportunity when opportunity presents itself and someone opens a door for you? What happens, and therefore what happens when nobody opens a door for you? Okay, so if you have a view. Well, what about letting us all hear about it? You can call in to 086 000 2032. 086 000 2032. Then WhatsApp, you have two options, text or voice notes. Young and old, all of you can do it, male, female, whatever. I certainly want to hear from you. 0614 104 107. You have a third option. You can also comment on our social media pages. We are, of course, streaming live on Facebook via SAFM Radio, and we do the same on the X platform. Just find SAFM Radio, and you can also check me out there. But when you're commenting there, do tweet. When you tweet it out, just use that hashtag, The National Pulse. It's much easier for us to connect and find you when you do that. Okay, let's get to know what you think about Siya Kolisi and what I call him a global phenomenon. You may also want to comment about what I'm going to talk about now, which is the United Kingdom Foreign Office has issued a terror alert for South Africa, for its citizens who are planning to visit this country. I understand that International Relations, DIRCO, is yet to receive official confirmation of that, but that story is being covered in South Africa and in many other parts of the world. What does that mean? We've had many of those before, haven't we? Andy Mashaile is with me. He's the security strategist and a retired Interpol ambassador. Andy, goodness, we have not chatted in a while. Hello.
It's good to be back with you, champion, on your champion heavyweight show.
Well, there you are. Well, you're the heavyweight champion anyway. Good talking to you, Andy. Right, so listen, if you're the heavyweight champion of security, you better tell us what's going on.
What is going on is the West, one country called America and the UK and Australia calling themselves the West, have this tendency to create panic because some individuals in South Africa, according to them, the Foreign Office, according to them, people from our country visited Libya, people visited Syria as well as Iraq. And in their minds, they are saying those people who went to visit there would come back inspired by Daesh or ISIS and come and target their citizens in our country at malls, places of entertainment. I'm thinking rugby. I'm thinking cricket. Cricket. Yeah, and it suggests that the intelligence agencies or other countries can sow panic as they see fit. But I'm happy that State Security Agency and DERCO are now responding. I was worried, Ashraf, when we did not hear anything from our country. Obviously, from my research and analysis and interpretation of data and information of this nature, I would feel confident, you and I would feel confident if our South African heads of security, law enforcement, as well as intelligence say to us, there is this that we have received.
Mm-hmm.
And for Americans to go ahead and just say what they want to say, it's not kosher, it's not acceptable.
Well, okay, in this case, it's the UK more than the USA, right? Whether they have a chat with each other, I understand, but it's the UK Foreign Office. But, I mean, let's take one step at a time without necessarily just shrugging it off, right? Because, I mean, you know, if there's a terror alert in South Africa, then it's not just for British citizens who visit this country, that is for South Africans as well. I mean, listen, a terror alert doesn't discriminate, I don't think so, in a country, so then I should be concerned as well, right? So you mentioned that where would they get the information from? And I think you're suggesting that there are people who've traveled and visited other countries, and you mentioned Libya, if I'm not mistaken, and others, and they've come back with that information. So, I mean, who are these people?
They are not telling us, that is the British are not telling us who are the people, who are South Africans who traveled to Syria, Libya, and Iraq. They are not telling us their names, maybe for reasons best known to them. And that is a concern. If you have identified a few individuals who visited those countries and you know the nature of their business that they were conducting in those three countries, why are you not sharing that information with the State Security Agency or with our government so that our government can then advise us? Ashraf, let me quickly say this to you. This happened in 2018. We received an alert as a country. In 2020, we received an alert. In October 2022, we received an alert where the president even responded to say they must provide evidence. In 2024 April, we are receiving an alert that suggested that it was supposed to happen this past weekend, and nothing came out of it. That, to me, as a security strategist, says when I do analysis of their framework and the frameworks of our country from an intelligence gathering point of view. I doubt, it says to me, I doubt if they really meant to create awareness for their citizens in South Africa and for people traveling from UK to South Africa. I think they might have done it for many other reasons. I'm not a conspiracy theorist.
But I'm wondering, I mean, and if the purpose of the alert is not to create awareness, then what would the purpose be? I mean, clearly, if, like any country, your job as a country is to protect your citizens. So if you want to create awareness of your citizens traveling to another country, you say, don't go there, right? So, I mean, what other reason would there be?
I am a slave of my theories, and I don't like sharing them at this point in time. But I suspect that you South Africans and your country and your government have upset the apple cart all over the world by going to the International Court of Justice to talk about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
You think it's linked to that?
Yeah, it might be linked to that. When you do an analysis, you can infer based on the reaction worldwide against South Africa, whether this move was aimed to disrupt tourism that would be coming through at this point in time of the year in South Africa. I'm not sure, but I can only infer and put a full stop there.
Well, okay, so, we hopefully should be talking to a representative from DERCO as well sometime on the show, and I'm sure listeners have their own views about that, right? Let's just take a step back and almost step aside on this one to say, even if, let's say, the UK government are being reckless, right, the issues of terror attached to the names of the two bodies you mentioned, which is ISIS and which is Daesh. I mean, that certainly has happened more than once, right? I mean, would there be a cause for concern in terms of where they operate in certain countries? I know there's been allegations of infiltration by these type of groups in countries in West Africa, for example.
There have been allegations of Daesh or ISIS having members in South Africa. I'm sure the law enforcement agencies in our country, working with their international counterparts, would be on the prowl looking for such. Up to this far, one cannot, from our research based on open source intelligence and many other spaces where we talk to people in other parts of the world on security matters, one would assume that there would be in northern Mozambique, Cabo Delgado, you would have ISIS operating there, allegedly operating there and creating chaos. And when it's hot there, people displacing themselves, finding their way into South Africa. And therefore, the suggestion or the theory that there might be sleeper cells in South Africa would come from the heat that Daesh is experiencing in northern Mozambique, Cabo Delgado to be specific, and finding themselves in our country. But up to this far, my research and my speaking to my colleagues in the space has not suggested that you have sleeper cells here, because there's been no action and no individuals have been pounced on. Maybe law enforcement agencies and intelligence are working on that space. I'm not sure.
Okay, let's so we can leave it Andy Mashaile, but certainly we'll get reaction from DIRCO, and we'll get reaction from SFM's listeners nationwide, globally, wherever you are in the country, wherever you are in the world. You tell me what you make of this UK terror alert to South Africa for their citizens coming to this country. Andy Mashaile is a security strategist and a retired Interpol ambassador. Can you ever really be a retired Interpol ambassador? We'll talk about Cameroon in a moment.
Match day number 30 will deliver high emotions and tension. 14th and 15th placed VfL Wolfsburg and VfL Bochum must go beyond their limits in the final stretch. Who will climb the ladder to victory? This is the Bundesliga. Football as it's meant to be. Catch VfL Wolfsburg versus VfL Bochum this Saturday, 20 April at 3 p.m. live on SABC3. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Hashtag We Love It Here. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game. And we would buy 500 cars, and we would buy 500 more. So sell your car for the best price, and we won't think about it twice. We buy cars, we buy cars. Da-da-dun-da-da-dun-da-da-dun-da-da-da. We buy cars, we buy cars.
We Buy Cars, the easiest way to sell your car by far.
Nalibito la kakibunola mo akhi di bantu mbark Miss B, morara Miss T, mo akhi di the Bonnie B Bonbon, and we'll be now playing Kena on Mondays at 4:30. The day has changed, but the time slot hasn't. So if you're interested in news that's happening with us kids and our peers around the world, don't forget to tune in. See you there.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda.
There's a WhatsApp that says, hi, we don't want to be part of these wars. We advise the ANC to stop these ICC things. I think you mean ICJ, right? Or maybe both. And stop using South Africa. We are a peaceful nation having a lot onto our own plates. We don't need extra. Our state security is compromised. So help us, God. Okay? That's one thought. Keep it going in terms of your opinions about that terror alert from the UK to South Africa. Let's go to Cameroon now. Now, Cameroon's National Medical Council, that's an association of medical doctors, they say healthcare is increasingly preoccupied with is one of doctors has to take care of for 50,000 patients instead of the WHO recommended one doctor per 10,000. So got that right, 1 to 50,000 compared to 1 to 10,000. Officials say 75% of the 1,000 doctors the government trains each year are fleeing hardship, poor pay and difficult working conditions to developed countries. Channel Africa's Moki Kinzeka reports from the Cameroonian capital, Yaoundé.
Officials in Cameroon say thousands of doctors are fleeing for lucrative jobs in developed countries, especially in Europe and North America. Cameroon's Ministry of Public Health reports that several hundred doctors are enrolled in what members of the profession see as lucrative schemes to emigrate to Canada. The number of health workers, including doctors, applying for the U.S. government's Diversity Immigration Visa Program, also known as Green Card Lottery, is on the increase. The Cameroon Medical Council reports that the doctors are fleeing hardship, poor pay, difficult working conditions, and unemployment. Dr. Peter Louis Ndifo, the council's vice president, says it is unfortunate that Cameroon trains but does not recruit thousands of its doctors.
A doctor who leaves school, for example, earns less than 150,000 francs. How does that doctor pay his or her rent? How does he eat? How does he take care of his family? The sign that doctors are quitting Cameroon and going out of the country is an eloquent testimony that doctors are in discomfort. Doctors are in distress. The World Health Organization actually recommends one doctor to 10,000 inhabitants. Unfortunately, you have one doctor to 50,000 Cameroonians. I think this is ironic because we have doctors in Cameroon that are unemployed.
Ndifo said the doctor-patient ratio in Cameroon has sunk to one doctor per 50,000 people. The World Health Organization recommends one doctor per 10,000 people, Ndifo said. Cameroon says it currently needs at least 30,000 health workers, including doctors, in the country, which is suffering from Boko Haram terrorism that has left more than 36,000 people dead. The Cameroon Medical Council says the Central African country in 2013 launched a program to train about 1,000 doctors in order to improve the doctor-patient ratio, which was then one doctor per 17,000 patients. But the government recruits less than 100 doctors each year due to financial constraints, officials say. Cameroon's Ministry of Public Health says it expected privately owned hospitals to recruit a majority of the doctors upon graduation from medical school, but hospitals owned by individuals, communities, and churches also recruit less than 100 doctors each year. Even when recruited, the doctors say they are paid about $100 per month in private hospitals and about $220 per month in government hospitals. 29-year-old Jato Godlove is an unemployed doctor. He says he yearns to be in a hospital saving lives as he was taught to do during his 7 years of study at the Faculty of Medicine of Cameroon's University of Bamenda. Jato says hardship is making him consider following the several thousand of his peers who have left the country.
I find myself being really restrained and restricted in my capacity to help my family. I even have some peers who venture out of medicine because they see that as a medic, when you get somewhere to offer your services, they will tell you they want to pay you 50,000 francs a month, which is really funny. Some of them have families. When they find themselves in such situations, they see better opportunities abroad. I think you can't blame them.
Dr. Dennis Nsami, director of the regional hospital in Bamenda, says unemployed healthcare workers outnumber health workers hired by the government.
At the regional hospital Bamenda, out of 600 staff, only 146 are state-employed staff. And we consult in average 45,000 patients per year, carry out about 1,900 surgeries per year. We have deliveries close to 250 to 300 every month.
That's a hugely concerning issue, isn't it? And South Africa has similar problems too, right? Let's get the news headlines now. Just go on 3:30 with Al Musa.
Good afternoon. Thanks, Ashraf. In the headlines, the Gauteng High Court in Pretoria has ordered the Office of the Public Protector furnish former Public Protector Advocate Busisiwe Mkhwebane with the records and the reasons that inform the decision not to pay the 10 million rand gratuity by tomorrow. Independent candidate Anele Mda says she will address challenges faced by people living with disabilities if she's elected to Parliament in the upcoming elections. And G7 foreign ministers are meeting in Italy for talks on Ukraine and the Middle East. They are there to consider ways to generate funds for Ukraine and consider the appeals from the President Volodymyr Zelensky to bolster its air defenses. I'll have details on these and other stories at 4.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, protest action in the Rabie Ridge area, so please avoid Modderfontein Road and Dane Road area. In Soweto, the N17 is closed between the N1 highway and Soweto Highway. That's due to protest action. New Canada is closed between New Canada and Soweto due to protest action, and Soweto Highway also closed between Klipstraight Valley Road Circle and Emig Drive due to protest action. And SKM Batleli Drive northbound in Pretoria has delays towards Mood Street. In KZN, the M4 is slow moving in the Tongaat Beach area. The N2 southbound is queuing towards Spaghetti Junction. The N2 southbound has a truck lost load reported just before Prospection exit, so you're asked to expect delays. The N3 eastbound has a stationary truck just before Camperdown exit, and the N3 southbound has a vehicle fire incident reported at Van Rynens Pass. In Cape Town, the N2 inbound is where pedestrian crashes reported just before the N7 Jakes Harold Drive junction. The M5 southbound is slow moving towards Krombom Road exit. The M3 southbound is slow moving towards Rhodes Drive, and Batencroft Street outbound is slow moving towards the elevated freeway. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
So normally I'd say, to me, what's the big stories? Zai, Khan, what's the big stories?
I think you led with the big story. It's Siya Kolisi, going for gold beyond the try line as well. So, yeah, Ashraf, what is there that we could?
I mean, I made my point. What's your point about Siya Kolisi?
This one is that him and his team now are adding more glitter to their already illustrious cap with nominations across the board at the upcoming SA Sports Awards. And this is hot on the heels after you mentioned as well Kolisi's recognition as one of Time Magazine's 100 most influential. So him along with Eben Etzebeth, they could scoop up the Sports Star of the Year and the People's Choice Award. The Boks not resting on their laurels as well. They are contending for Team of the Year, while their former coach Jacques Ninaba could walk away with Coach of the Year. Mark Alexander up for Sports Administrator of the Year. Wow.
Can I interrupt you? And Rassie Erasmus has to win the award for the most entertaining dressing room coach in any sport in the world. Right?
Rassie, man, that guy is a mastermind of note. I agree. And I think, if there was a mastermind award, he should also get it.
Well, there you are.
Rassie Erasmus. What would we be without Rassie? He's there's the brains, and then there's the brawn trust. Anyway, so we'll have that as well as Manny Libok. He could clinch the Newcomer of the Year title with Amy Barrett-Theron nominated for Technical Officer of the Year. So definitely a proud moment as Rugby Nation there, shining in 9 different categories. The winners will be announced at a star-studded event at Sun City. That's on the 5th of May. Now, let's go to Proteas women's seamer Ayabonga Kaka, becoming the first black woman to reach 100 caps at the international level in the country. Her father, Kaya Mama, has shared the people who inspired her to this level, speaking during the third and final ODI match between the Proteas women and Sri Lanka in Potchefstroom. Mama, who was at the venue to watch his daughter make history in South African as well as international sport, says Kaka's grandfather and uncles were instrumental in her taking up the sport.
Umakhulu, she never played cricket herself. Zangadlala cricket kodwa ungumuntu othanda isport. Ngumuntu othanda umntana obheke phambili umakhulu. Wathi xa ebona ba Ayabonga uyasithanda isport kangangoba ibe ngumuntu obemdriver kusasa emva kwakhe kuba siyazi uba kukho safe udriver ukubaleka wedwa umntana intombazana ngakumbi amphathele amanzi amphathele ukutya emsapota kuzo zonke indawo afuna udlala kuzo so umakhulu ifuthe lakhe lelona libangela uba sibe kule ndawo namhlanje uhuza.
That's the father there speaking of Ayabonga Kaka. His name is Kaya Mama. On to netball news. Netball South Africa standing firm in its decision to dissolve the Gauteng netball provincial structures, and that's due to alleged malpractice and maladministration, replacing it with an interim committee. The NSA has scheduled a fresh election date for voting on a new board between the 29th of June and July this year, despite facing legal action from Gauteng and the High Court seeking to overturn the disbandment. The NSA remains resolute, refusing to yield to their demands. Soccer FA Cup replays will be scrapped from the first rounds onwards in the 2024-2025 season. All rounds of the Emirates FA Cup will also be played on weekends, including the fifth round, which has been played in midweek for the past 5 seasons. Now, the Premier League has also removed its midweek break from the calendar. Let's go now to where Pep Guardiola, the Manchester City boss, still hurting, but saying he has no regrets after his team's dream of a double treble ended in the heartbreak of a 4-3 penalty shootout, and that was defeat to Real Madrid on a night when Arsenal also crashed out of the Champions League. They won a loss at Bayern Munich, consigning them to a 3-2 aggregate defeat. Now, City came from behind in their quarterfinal second leg at the Etihad Stadium. Kevin De Bruyne's 76-minute strike cancelling out Rodrigo's opener early in the first half. Now, despite the holders dominating possession, Real held on until the end of extra time and eventually prevailed from the spot. Here's City boss Pep Guardiola.
Yes, I would have preferred to win. First of all, congratulations to Real Madrid to reach the semi-finals. They defend so deep with incredible solidarity. So we did everything. I don't have absolutely any regret about what we have done. So always we try as a managers, and so create more and concede less in every single game, because we believe that that helps to be close to win, and we did everything. So defensively, offensively, they make a good goal. So 1, 2, 3 or 4 transition, but it is normal in that level and the quality they have. But we play exceptional in all departments, in everything, and unfortunately we could not win. So that's where it is.
Also hurting was Arsenal's Champions League exit following a heavy blow to its Premier League title ambitions. In their 2-0 loss to Aston Villa, that was on Sunday, defeat also rules Arsenal out of next year's Club World Cup in the United States. Here's their manager, Mikel Arteta.
I don't know if it was about belief. Obviously, the goal put them in a very different position, and they kept adapting and making changes to defend even deeper. But I saw the players really willing, trying their best. It wasn't enough, it's true, that we lacked that magic moment that is needed in this competition to unlock it, to make something happen when the game requires to open that door. We didn't have it, and that's why we are out.
And that's the wrap of your sport. On the National Pulse, we'll bring you more top of the hour. I'm Zai Khan.
Listen,
I don't know.
The Pulse were racing yesterday. So here's the thing. We know about Man City supposedly outplaying a defensive-minded Real and Arsenal losing. But here's the question I want to ask you. It went to a penalty shootout, right? The Man City game against Real Madrid. So what happened? When were penalty shootouts first ever introduced? And what used to happen before penalty shootouts when games ended in a draw? Do you know?
No. Where are you taking me back? Before I was in a liquid state?
Yeah.
Probably
all I do know, and I stand to be corrected, I think in the European Championship or whatever, around the 1970s, and I stand to be corrected, something like the Czech Republic either won or lost the championship on the basis of a drawn match, and they won on the basis of a toss of a coin. But don't take my word for it. Go and check it out. But the bigger question I want to know is, when were penalty shootouts first introduced and what happened before that? You tell us, maybe you've got an hour to think about it.
Well, if you know the answer, you can call us on the pulse as well, because maybe you have your finger on that pulse.
I don't know it. Thank you.
Match day number 30 will deliver high emotions and tension. 14th and 15th placed VfL Wolfsburg and VfL Bochum must go beyond their limits in the final stretch. Who will climb the ladder to victory? This is the Bundesliga. Football as it's meant to be. Catch VfL Wolfsburg versus VfL Bochum this Saturday, 20 April at 3 p.m. live on SABC3. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Hashtag We Love It Here. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game. For the first time in 30 years, the ANC is set to lose its majority. Opposition parties have united as the multi-party charter for South Africa.
A strong democratic alliance with a proven track record
can anchor a new government that serves the people.
But a new government that works is only possible if you vote for it. Let's unite and rescue South Africa. Vote DA.
This political party advertisement was paid for by the political party concerned. The views expressed in this advertisement are those of the political party and not those of the SABC.
The Saturday.
Time is going while I sit around waiting. What if they never find her? I should never have let her go to school. I should have known better. Catch me, Samson Kumalo, on the Saturday play. You haven't spoken to me since I came back from prison. Why?
Because I have nothing to speak to you about.
Oh, come on, Sego. Aren't you happy that Big Daddy's back? I missed you, you know.
Catch the Saturday play between 9 and 10 p.m. Only on SAFM.
The National Pulse, weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
Well, the conversation I had with Andy Mashayile is now up as a podcast, the one on the UK terror alert. Give me your thoughts about that. What do you make of all of that? And what should South Africa do about it? I mean, really, that's significant. So you tell me, 086 000 2032, WhatsApp, text or voice 0614 104 107. Here's a voice note on that issue.
Afternoon, Ashraf. Ashraf, why those terror threats are only coming from two countries, America and Britain? Why? Are they spying on South Africa? No. If there is any threat, they must leave that one to the South African government. We'll meet it as it will deal with it as it reaches the South African shore. So they must not worry about South Africa. Anonymous.
And there's a voice note, in fact, a text, WhatsApp. South Africa remained neutral between Russia and Ukraine, so it makes you wonder why they are supporting Hamas. I think they should stay out of it. They're interfering and don't know enough of what is going on. Well, talking about Hamas and the Palestinians, that's a very topical conversation to have right now, not about them, but about the state of the Palestinians and their statehood, because tomorrow a very important vote's going to take place at the United Nations Security Council, and they're going to vote on a Palestinian request for full UN membership. So, to understand all of that, let's chat about it with Zeenat Adam, who's the Deputy Executive Director at the Afro-Middle East Center. Zeenat, as always, good chatting to you. Thanks for joining us on the National Pulse.
Thank you for having me, Ashraf.
Thank you. So, I have to tell you, full membership would suggest they've got part membership at the moment. What's the current status with the Palestinians at the UN?
Their current status is an observer status, and in 2012, the UN General Assembly gave de facto recognition of the Palestinian state and recommended that they be accepted as full member. Now, that hasn't gone through the procedures of the United Nations until now, where the application has been made and the committee that considers this has now met twice. There doesn't seem to be complete consensus on whether or not the Palestinians have met the criteria, but the resolution is being tabled by Algeria, and that is set to be voted on tomorrow.
And up to now, in terms of their observer status, I mean, I certainly know the meaning of the word observe, but in practical terms, at the UN, what does an observer status allow you to do?
Well, they have the opportunity of being able to present some of their cases to the United Nations, but they don't have any capacity to be a voting member and to act in any of the committees that the United Nations has. So this would effectively make Palestine a full member of the United Nations, and that means that you actually recognize it as an independent sovereign state. So that is where the sticking point comes, in that the Americans and the Israelis and allies are against the idea of doing this. The Americans have said that they have had to make it clear that their current U.S. law compels their administration to veto this resolution or to defund the United Nations, so because they are against this idea. And they would prefer that any discussion in line with the idea of a Palestinian state should be through a negotiated post-war plan and settlement between the Israelis and the Palestinians.
So the current position then if the plan is to consider the recognition of Palestine as a sovereign state, what then does the U.S. or rather United Nations, what is the UN status with regard to Palestine now? That means, is it recognized as a sovereign state? I get the answer is no. So what is it? What is the international status of the Palestinians?
The Palestinians have not been given a full recognition as a sovereign state. There are a few countries who have independently recognized Palestine as an independent state, but it's also a question of whether or not it meets the criteria for such. And that relates to issues of territorial integrity, their sovereignty, the nationals of the state. There's certain state apparatus that have to be in place. Now, the idea of recognizing a state of Palestine is not something new. This has come up around the time when there were the Oslo Accords and the proposal for a two-state solution. We have seen that proposal and that Oslo Accord actually fall apart in the last few decades as Israel has continued its incursions and the building of settlements, and now with their carpet bombing and the genocide taking place in Gaza, and we've heard from Netanyahu that he wants to reenact a revival plan for settlements in Gaza. And his statement was, we will uproot them and take root. Now, this is completely contradictory to United Nations resolutions. It is completely contradictory to international law and certainly contradicts the Oslo Accords. The issue on Oslo and the two-state solution is that the Palestinians have felt for a very long time that the two-state solution has failed abysmally and that there needs to be a reconsideration of a one-state solution. So there is a split in terms of how people view the solution for the Middle East crisis. And this is one of the issues that is going to be in the minds of those who are voting tomorrow.
And help us understand this. There's one part of Palestine. I mean, one can debate about whether the whole of Israel is Palestine, but that's another question. But for now, there's one part of Palestine which is in the West Bank, where Jerusalem is, right? And the other part is the very topical Gaza or Gaza, right? So which part of the Palestinian people has put this application forward right now?
This application is being done by the Palestinian Authority, and I don't think that we should view the Palestinians as separate people. It's a very dangerous contention to say that Gaza is separate from the West Bank, and this is essentially and effectively what the Israelis would prefer to do, and that is divide and rule, and to create a separation. There's a physical separation, and now there would be a mental separation. I think what is concerning, though, is that if such a recognition is given to a Palestinian state, there still remains a lot of outstanding issues related to the territorial integrity, related to the security apparatus, related to statecraft, who runs the state, how is the governance of a Palestinian state going to be managed? And these are issues that impact very greatly on the situation, because currently the Palestinians are an occupied country. They are occupied by Israel, and Israel has prevented the establishment of statecraft and governance structures that they do not approve of, and they've certainly dismantled the security system, they've dismantled airports, they've dismantled basic state infrastructure, and that has a major impact on whether or not a Palestinian state is viable.
Let's end with the issue of the vote, right? So the vote will take place tomorrow by the UN Security Council, so not the General Assembly, right? And you need what? One of the Security Council members to veto for that vote to be squashed completely, right?
At this stage, the expectation is that you should have 9 votes as a majority without a veto. It seems that there is a possibility towards that. However, the expectation is that the United States is going to use the veto. And so essentially tomorrow's vote and the resolution is already dead in the water.
Yeah, well, let's see what happens next. Thanks for your time, as always, giving us those insights. Zinat Adam, the Deputy Executive Director at the Afro Middle East Center. We'll put this up as a podcast as well. Imminently, just go to SAFM, the SAFM account, or radio account, that is, on the X or Twitter platform. You'll find us there. Right, we'll talk about Siya Kolisi and his impact, as I suggested earlier on, in a moment.
Join Smile Foundation for a movie night under the stars featuring Sing 2 on Saturday, 20th of April at Old Ed Sports Grounds. To book, visit smilefoundationsa.org. This is an SABC supported initiative.
For years, Outsurance has been saying they'll save you money on your car insurance, or you can ask for 500 Rand or 1,500 Rand cash if they don't. Here's Fundi, 46 from Brackenfell.
I was not happy with what I was paying. I heard about the 500 Rand from Outsurance, but they give me lesser amount for my car. I'm paying 523 Rand on my 2013 Hyundai iX35.
So here's how it works. SMS out to 30754. We'll give you a no-obligation car insurance quote. If the quote is less than you're currently paying, you'll end up saving money on your car insurance every month. And if it's more than you're currently paying, you can ask for 500 Rand. And if you've been with the same insurer and claim free for 3 years or more, tell us you want 1,500 Rand.
Give Outsurance a call. It's a win-win. You can't lose.
SMS out to 30754 now. That's out to 30754. Outsurance is a licensed insurer and FSP. T's, C's, and limits apply. Premiums are risk profile dependent and reviewed annually. Client comments do not constitute financial advice. The Tunisian red and yellow outfit want to smile out of the field of play to emphasize why they are also called the smiling one. But Masandawana believe there's a humongous reason why they are Bafana Bastyle. This is the first leg of the Total Energies CAF Champions League semi-final. Experience the exhilaration of African football. ES Tunis FC tackles Mamelodi Sundowns FC. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4 and SABC 3. This Saturday, 20 April at 8:30 p.m. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Hashtag We Love It Here. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
Right, weekday nights, so weeknights on S3 are about to get lit. BBC Primetime will give you access to a hand-picked selection of BBC Studio award-winning dramas and documentaries and factual entertainment. Listen to these titles, okay? Luther Critical, Cheaters, Top Gear, Live at the Apollo, Louis Theroux, Forbidden America, and more. Now, you simply don't want to miss out, right? So tune into S3 from the 1st of May, coming up in a few weeks' time, from 9 p.m. until 11 p.m. to channel the very best of British entertainment with BBC Prime Time, only on S3. Open up.
X at SAFM Radio and at Ashraf Garda.
Right, we spoke about my thoughts on Siya Kolisi. Let's find out more about from a different perspective in terms of his impact, right, and his influence with Tsepo Matseba, who's the MD for Reputation First. Tsepo, good chatting to you. Hi.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. So good to be here, and welcome to this platform.
Absolutely, it's been a while, as you would gather. Yes, yeah. So, what do you make? And I'm looking at it. I'm looking at Siya Kolisi not as the rugby player, but as the brand, right? When you get Time Magazine rating him as one of the 100 most influential people in the world, you as someone who manages brand and brand reputation, you say what?
Yeah, I mean, the story of Siya is just amazing. The extent to which he got listed or placed on the top 100 list of most influential people says a lot beyond rugby. Because when you look at the fact that of where he comes from, being raised by his grandmother from Zwide in Tebega, and the hardships that he had to go through, the level of resilience, just demonstrated his spirit of the brand, and he could actually play out his story and journey next to the story of major icons and brands such as Nelson Mandela, who went through serious difficulties in their lives to position themselves, but also inspired by purpose throughout to make a significant difference on in their communities and in the countries where they come from. And that's what the kind of words that come through to my mind when I think about Siya Kolisi, over and above the gentleman on the pitch.
That he certainly is. Well, yeah. Now, outside, when we talk about brands, I'm just thinking about a motor car, and you think about a motor car company, and it's like, that's a brand, right? When we talk about a Siya Kolisi as a brand, right, how then do you evaluate him and therefore put a number to him as a brand? I mean, do you do that?
Yeah, I mean, there are, at some point we will go through a process with perhaps with brand finance just to test the value and equity of his brand. But at face value, one of the things that we look at when we look at personal brands and sport men as brands, men and women, you look at consistency of their value proposition. And when you look at Siya's story, despite the complexity of rugby as being historically a white male-dominated sport, he was able to blend himself and to show a proposition in that space and deliver on that proposition consistently. He is probably one of the few unifiers that we have in South African sports and perhaps in South African business leadership. And he has done so consistently. So the proposition must be clear about what you offer, but that offering must be delivered competently and consistently over a period of time. And that's what he's been able to articulate and demonstrate without fail. And that, for me, is one of the key ingredients of a clear brand.
Yeah. Now, here's something for you to mull over, right? I mean, I know you don't manage him, but assuming you did, I mean, that would be amazing, right? What advice would you give him now, considering, I mean, he's 30 plus, he's going to come to the end of his career, clearly, sometime soon. He's playing his rugby right now with the Racing Club in France. Meaning, what advice would you give him to retain the integrity of his brand and to still build on that in terms of financial revenue streams and legacy without compromising both of them?
Yeah, so the way he's handling his foundation, for example, in philanthropic work, sets a firm foundation for him to particularly play a role in social impact projects for private companies and public companies. So he can do it for the state, but he can also do it locally and internationally. But in addition to that, nothing stops him from really being a brand that cuts across retail and mobile, where really he becomes not only an influencer, but an owner of a specific brand. And I would say he should go and study Tiger Woods and what Tiger is doing in extending his brand beyond the golf course.
Only difference. Tiger stopped winning, and you know all about that. That's another whole conversation, right? Let's leave it at that.
From a business leadership point of view, some lessons there to be picked up.
There we are. Tsepo Matseba, the MD for Reputation First, looking at the legacy of Siya Kolisi. By the way, if you tuned in late, never tune in late, but if you did, there's a feature I have every day called That's My Point, and I've spent about 2-3 minutes explaining my thoughts on Siya Kolisi. It's up as a podcast. You can check it up, and we'll also post it visually on the SFM Radio X or account as we tweet it out. So check it out, right? We're going to talk to Zaki Ahmad, by the way, coming up after 5 o'clock. Let's get the news now. It's 4 o'clock.
In our top stories, Public Protector's Office ordered to provide Mkhwebane records relating to gratuity decision, and G7 ministers meeting for talks on Ukraine. Good afternoon. The Gauteng High Court in Pretoria has ordered the Office of the Public Protector furnish former Public Protector, Advocate Busisiwe Mkhwebane, with the records and the reasons that informed the decision not to pay the 10 million rand gratuity by tomorrow. The legal counsel on behalf of the office had argued the papers filed by the applicant did not compel the respondents to relinquish the records. Mkhwebane launched an urgent review over the non-payment of the gratuity after the PP's office in February allegedly informed her that she would not be receiving it due to her impeachment in September last year. The Chapter 9 institution, which is the first respondent in the matter, has been ordered to pay the costs. Judge Colleen Collis.
In the present matter, these steps had not been followed as the record and the reasons for the decision had not been furnished. The failure to have furnished the record has the unintended consequence that the application to date is not ripe for hearing, as all the necessary affidavits that ought to have been filed is not before the court to date.
In election news, independent candidate Anele Mda says she will address challenges faced by people living with disabilities if she is elected to Parliament in the upcoming elections. Mda, who is one of 11 independent candidates contesting the May 29th elections, launched her manifesto at Constitutional Hill today. The former COPE member and MP says she will focus on 3 key areas that include access to opportunities, advocacy for recognition, and addressing discrimination.
When we are talking about people living with disability, we are talking about a sector in our society that is facing repeated jeopardy and repeated victimization of being closed on opportunities. When you are talking about businesses, you do not even ever hear us talking about people that are living with disability being business people, because we have become okay with the fact that they are defaced and are not seen in the landscape.
The president of Bold One South Africa, Mmusi Maimane, who's campaigning in Thaba Nchu in the Free State, says his party will restore the once thriving economy of the town. He told members of the community that he planned to ensure that there is a job in each household. He emphasized the need to bring development to the town as he recognizes that the province has a high unemployment rate. Maimane is also expected to meet with the community of Bloemfontein.
We want to serve the people with leaders that have not broken any laws, and we can ensure that for those, especially for the Free State, we want to be able to collaborate with them so that that vision of a job in every home must be shared by the council, shared by the people, and we can bring development so that one day, as Thaba Nchu historically used to be, where there are factories, there's development. Now all of that has ceased. We've got to work to bring that back to ensure that jobs are created.
Tshwane Mayor Celia Brink says he's confident the financially constrained Metro will achieve an unqualified audit in the current financial year ending in June. The Metro had experienced a financial crisis which saw it unable to pay striking municipal workers an increased wage. In the 2022-2023 financial year, the Metro obtained a qualified audit which it held as an improvement from the adverse audit opinion it had obtained in the 2021-2022 financial year. During his State of the City address today, Brink assured residents of the capital that the Metro's financial rescue plan is yielding results.
This year, we will clear the last remaining adverse finding related to property, plant and equipment, and I'm confident that we will achieve an unqualified audit in this year. Of course, our financial rescue is far from complete. A great deal of work still needs to be done, and the stakes cannot be higher.
And finally, G7 foreign ministers are meeting in Italy for talks on Ukraine and the Middle East. They are to consider ways to generate funds for Ukraine and consider the appeals from President Volodymyr Zelensky to bolster its air defences. The BBC's Jessica Parker has the details.
Money for Ukraine high on the agenda. Something, again, that seems to be being discussed here. I don't think you'll necessarily see any solid outcome here, is whether you could use frozen Russian assets, the bulk of which are held in Europe, somehow to generate money that can be sent to Ukraine. And that I think, has come to the fore again because of this US aid package worth $60 billion being stalled in Congress. But there is now some hope that maybe that deadlock could be about to end, but they are looking around other options, such as using frozen Russian assets. But this has been debated for quite some time, and there have often been warnings that it's very legally complicated.
Recapping the top story, the Gauteng High Court in Pretoria has ordered the Office of the Public Protector furnish former Public Protector Advocate Busisiwe Mkhwebane with the records and the reasons that inform the decision not to pay the 10 million rand gratuity by tomorrow. For SAFM News, I am Anne Musa.
A very good afternoon to you in your SAFM Sporting Pulse today. The World Cup winning Springboks are lined up for more honours at the SA Sports Awards. And on the track, speedster Akani Simbine lays down the gauntlet at the National Championships. Tune in at around 4:30 for the full sprint down.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, in central Johannesburg, the M2 eastbound has a crash reported at Crown Interchange, and as a result, the M1 southbound is slow moving towards Crown Interchange. In KZN, the M7 westbound is queuing at the Bel Air Wakesley Road junction, the N2 southbound is queuing through Amanzimtoti, and the M13 westbound in Westville has a crash reported near the Essex Terrace exit. In Cape Town, the N2 inbound, where that fatal pedestrian crash is reported just before the N7 JX Harold Drive junction, is causing a heavy delay. Albert Road is slow moving through Woodstock, Turfel Road is slow moving through Hanover Park, and Newlands Avenue southbound has heavy traffic towards the M3 highway. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide, leading the conversation.
For 120 years, Rhodes University has shaped history. From Sir George Corey's pioneering 62 conversations capturing the early history of the Eastern Cape, to the first email to be sent in South Africa, and now leading the way in nanotechnology. Rhodes University is more than an educational institution. We are a legacy in motion. Be part of the evolving legacy. Rhodes University, where leaders learn.
The Royal Club says victory on home soil is non-negotiable, but Ghanaian outfit Dreams FC can smell maximum points as a dream come true. The capital of Egypt faces the capital of Ghana. This is the first leg of the Total Energies CAF Confederation Cup semi-final. Catch Zamalek Sporting Club up against Dreams FC live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4 this Sunday, 21 April at 6 p.m. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Hashtag We Love It Here. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Here, there, and everywhere. SAFM 105.1 FM in Johannesburg. The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
So here's a question to you. What gets your pulses racing? What gets your pulses racing today? What are the big stories locally, nationally, globally, that really has got your pulses racing? And if you have something, and I expect you should, because my sense is SAFM radio listeners, well, they have strong opinions. You're activists, many of you are, in whichever way. So what gets your pulses racing? Tell me, 0614 104 107, that's via WhatsApp, text or voice notes, or you can also call into 086 000 2032, and wherever relevant, use that hashtag, the National Pulse, right? So we'll chat as part of our election monitor. We do it every Thursday, you know that. We'll speak to Zaki Ahmad. So he's interesting because he's a former activist. He would still say, I'm still an activist, Ashraf, but very importantly, he's standing on an independent ticket for this election. So looking forward to that conversation with him. In fact, what would you like to be asking Zaki Ahmed in the context of the election that's coming up in his own campaign? I wonder what you tell me. And then any of the other opinions about the conversations we've had already, the threats from the UK government to its warning, in fact, to its citizens to say South Africa, terror alert. What do you make of that? We also chatted about the Siya Kolisi legacy. I'm sure you have an opinion about that too. And then the issue of the doctors, we spoke about it in Cameroon, but there's also issues of doctors in South Africa. Again, the other day we spoke about it, 500 unemployed in KZN. Perhaps we should get an update on that issue. And if you've been following the issue of the former public protector, perhaps you may have an opinion on that too. So basically lots of things to talk about, including, of course, the Palestinian application for full recognition at the UN comes up tomorrow. Right. Let's get to the issues of health, in this case, health and security in South Africa. The Gauteng Health Department security guards, at provincial hospitals and clinics have vowed to continue to camp outside the department's offices in the Joburg CBD until their demands are met. Now, the security guards, they're affiliated to the trade union that SACSAU says they are protesting against issues including the termination of their employment contracts. So what does all that mean? How do we get to a win-win situation? Because clearly somebody's going to be compromised with this, right? With me is, in fact, we should be chatting to Andries Potsani, the secretary of the South African Cleaners, Security and Allied Workers Union, and hopefully we'll connect with Andries Potsani shortly, right? But in the meantime, we have Thabiso Maluleke, who's the director for the security services in the Gauteng Department of Health. So, Thabiso, appreciate your time. Thanks for joining us on the National Pulse.
Okay, no, thanks. Good afternoon.
Thank you. I tell you what, I'd be very concerned if I found that security guards linked to the health clinics and hospitals that fall within my ambit are effectively on a strike, on a no-show. What's the issue, according to you?
Okay, no, thanks. What has happened is that the department has previously advertised a security tender. And where, after the supply chain process, they then appointed the new service providers. And then prior to the appointment, obviously, the department will issue a notice to those ones that were serving according to the contract management systems. So upon this new one starting on the 1st of April, obviously the new companies, when they come in, some of them recruited the previous security officers. They took them through their recruitment process, which the department is not part of that. And then those that were suitable maybe to work under them, they then continued with them. So obviously there will be some of those security officers that were left out and that were previously contracted with the service providers that were under the Department of Health. So those are the security officers that are saying the department must then give them employment because they were left out by the previous service providers. So out of courtesy, what we have tried to do as a department, we have taken their name list and tried to engage the current service providers to consider them if they've got spaces left, And there are some of the officials that have received calls to come and work, and others who are told that no, even though they got calls, they didn't even report to the companies that they requested them to report to. So, unfortunately, they are camping outside our department. As the department, we have tried to engage them, and we have also tried to show them the route where they can also escalate their grievances about their previous employers, but still, we are not winning in that regard.
So we don't have, the representative from the South African Cleaners, Security and Allied Workers Union with us. But where do they fit in? I mean, in terms of your trying to find solutions for them, I mean, I would take it that they would be, SACSAU should be top of the agenda.
Yes, they are under the leadership of SACSAU. They are currently camping outside the premises. Actually, they are at the Commissioner Street, next to our offices. That is where they are currently staying. they are currently outside.
All right, but my question is, what for you is a reasonable solution now? Simply saying, the old people, the old company are not contracted with us anymore, so you're out of a job, go and speak to them. It's not going to work in a country where there's massive unemployment that's just increasing all the time. Bottom line, I think the majority of the people are just simply desperate. We covered the story of this lady who was looking for a job and she spoke to the president. We've had another caller on the air calling in crying to say, do you have any idea what's it like not to have work and to be unemployed and to have poverty? So you can understand that people really feel completely vulnerable. So what role, therefore, can even the Gauteng Health Department play to ensure that you create a win-win scenario across the board?
Like I said, upon us getting their complaints, they submitted a name list to us. In us trying to assist them, we have tried to speak to these companies. Remember, we can't get involved in the recruitment process of these service providers. But we have tried to contact these service providers. We have shared the name list of these officials with the service providers. And there are some of them have made possibilities of employing them. But seeking employment for them is out of our area of responsibility, but we have tried to engage these service providers to employ them.
But in the meantime, the reality, so these security guards are on strike. So are these, let me understand this, are these former security guards or security guards as well that are currently employed by a security company that still does work for the Gauteng Health Department?
These are former security guards that were employed by the previous companies.
Okay.
But out of the currently, we have service providers that have also appointed other security officers to work. So these are the ones that didn't make through their recruitment process, obviously. Maybe we don't know what might be the challenges why they didn't consider them. But we have tried to address that with them to say, can you also consider them? And there was a positive move from these service providers. But that is what the department can at least do.
Okay. At this point in time, is the issue of security at the various health department clinics within Gauteng Health Department, are they compromised at all because of security guards, maybe in solidarity with those security guards who are striking, who are protesting rather, not striking, effectively also not coming to work? Is that happening or is that not happening?
No, currently all our facilities, they've got security that is operating 100%. We are not affected by this because this is a group of people that were not appointed. But the majority, 95% of people that were working with us, they were employed. It's only a minority that was not employed, and they are the ones that are raising a concern.
Okay.
But our areas are secured 100%.
Is there finally anything else you'd like to tell us before we wrap up?
No, as a department, we understand they are concerned, but what we are appealing is that demonstrations should be done within the line of the law. There's an incident that occurred on Tuesday, which is something that is not right, and we then appeal to the SACSA Union not to show their concerns or show their complaints in that platform where people stand in front of the department not having covering their body.
Okay, that's where
we feel that the demonstration should be peaceful and within the law.
That's where we can leave it. But I'll tell you what, if we get a chance to speak to Andries Potsani from the union, we will certainly talk to him. For now, Tabiso Maluleke, appreciate your time, Director for Security Services in the Gauteng Department of Health. Right, what do you make of that issue as well? Again, another issue that should get your pulses racing, I'm sure about that. What do you make of that? What do you make of the issue of the alerts, the terror alerts to UK nationals visiting South Africa? But I want your calls, and I'll take calls now, and WhatsApp voice notes and text in all those combinations. So if you need to connect, you should have a number. I hope you have the number saved. I'd be like, those numbers must be saved automatically, right? But yeah, it is. I mean, to remind you, 086 000 2032, 086 000 2032. Then that's to call in live now. Then WhatsApp options, text or voice notes, 0614 104 107. Let's get to Peter Maritzburg. Rob's on the line. Hi, Rob. Rob, do I have you there? Hi. In fact, we'll connect with Rob in a second, and we'll pick up further voice notes in a moment.
Getting more money into your pockets has never been this simple and exciting. With SABC's new Simple Watch and Win game show, you can get more Zaga in your pockets. Catch more Zaga every weekday on SABC 1 at 9 p.m. You could win your share of 50,000 Rand. All you have to do to win is give the correct answer for the day. Just dial *120*332# to register and play. The cost is R1.50 per minute. You could win big with more Zaga. Only on SABC 1.
The Tunisian red and yellow outfit want to smile out of the field of play to emphasize why they are also called the Smiling One. But Masandawana believe there's a humongous reason why they are Bafana Bastyle. This is the first leg of the Total Energies CAF Champions League semi-final. Experience the exhilaration of African football. ES Tunis FC tackles Mamelodi Sundowns FC. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4 and SABC 3. This Saturday, 20 April at 8:30 p.m. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Hashtag We Love It Here. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Top Sport with Michael Abramson.
SA Ultra Marathon athlete Irfet van Zyl, who of course came second in a really good time of 3 hours 29.30 seconds. So a terrific race from your point of view. Unfortunately, from your side, Oscar de Steen is just becoming an institution in road running. You stretched all the way until the closing stages. You must have been pretty happy with your performance.
Yes, I am quite happy with my performance. I didn't think Hara would run such a fast time. I knew it would be fast, but I was gunning more for a 3:28 that I thought was the winning time going to be. So that is what my pace was set on and what my mind was going for. Yeah, I tried everything to beat her, and I just wasn't good enough on the day, but she had a great day.
Top Sport on SAFM. The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda.
Do not forget about Zaki Ahmed. I'm chatting to him after 5 o'clock as part of our election monitor feature. Now, we did ask you earlier on, I asked you what gets your pulse rate moving. Either way, let me know. Rob from Peter Marisburg has a thought. Hi, Rob.
Hi, Ashraf.
Yep.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Ashraf, I wanted to ask a question to the population. Let's have the conversation, because at the end of the day, what has happened in the last 30 years? If you're going to vote for a party now, why don't you look at the last 30 years, see how they've done, and then vote for that party or for the party that's in that environment, okay? Why do people always go back to the baddies? Why are we worried? Why are we trying to keep out the bad guys? The bad guys have not had one clean audit in 30 years and have stolen this country broken, literally to its knees. And people are still going to vote for it, and its allied parties like the EFF and the MK. The MK is, let's face it, a splinter of ANC. The MK started corruption in the first place with its president. It's the fact that Gupta's all that. They've stolen the country. Why don't we hear more about people phoning in and saying, chaps, I don't want to vote for a white take, I'm being honest, but jeepers, let's look at the way that they've run the Western Cape and the way that they've even run Umgani. I'm from Peter Marisburg. I see Howick now, what they're doing in Howick. And why don't people see that and say, you know what, I'm going to put my ethnic feelings aside now. It's 30 years on. Let's be grown-ups here. Put our big pants on.
But Rob,
let's vote for the right party.
All right.
And I just don't know why people don't do that. Sorry.
But Rob, no. I think, look, first of all, let's break it down. I think, and I've said this the other day on That's My Point feature that I start to show it. You can actually check it up on a video or podcast if you want to look for it again, right? That, you know, the question to ask is, the incumbent party, do you give them a mandate for another 5 years based upon what they've done in 30 years? They're the one party more than any other party that has a track record, that we've actually got evidence of how they manage, okay? So based on that, you can make a call, you and me and everybody else. Now, you're suggesting, the track record suggests that they should not be given an opportunity, and that's fine. Now, you're saying, why don't people call? In fact, people have called. Maybe you're just not listening. People have called, you know, not just on this show, but across the board, and they voice their opinions, okay? And they're not white South Africans. Not that I want to talk to one section of a community. Across the board, okay? On the other hand, to and this is maybe my point of departure. You made the point, say, EFF and MK and the allies of the ANC. We don't really know that for sure, because let's see what happens beyond the election, and if there's any coalition pact that comes up. We don't really know that, okay? Number one. Number two, in the same way, we don't really know how the DA's election pact holds with the other parties, right? Now, here's the point that I want to say, that what we can't expect people to go to is like, if they do not like the ANC, and there could be 100 reasons why they don't, then why would the default be the DA when there's evidence as well that the DA is able to run parts of the Western Cape very, very successfully, but are unable to run other parts of the Western Cape, and they run it very, very poorly. And the evidence of the Cape Flats are there to see. So all I'm saying to you is not to discuss Cape Town in particular, but to simply make the point that we can't just assume that the other party called the DA is just much better than the ANC.
Yeah, I hear you, Ashraf, but just one point, though, is that let's give the other oaks, okay, on the other side. So we all know that there's one side, which is ANC, EFF, MK, that lot, and then there's the other side. There's Action SA, there's BOSA. There's nice people there. In my opinion, they're good people, and they want to run the country properly. Let's give them a chance.
And we've given you a chance to address the nation, and thanks for that call, Rob. Let's get other thoughts as well. In fact, Rudzani Mpira wants to comment. Is the head of security in the Department of Health wants to pick up on the issue of the security guards, right? Rudzani, good chatting to you. Hi.
Good evening. I trust you're well and your listeners.
Yes, I certainly am. Yeah, go right. Do you want to raise some of the issues around the security guards?
Yeah, look, the problem as it was raised and responded to by my colleague and Tatamalek at the province is not only happening in Gauteng as a province, but I think it's a national problem. While we sympathize with those security guards that are not employed, but as a department, we'll want to also emphasize the fact that such protests should happen in the premises of the companies that previously employed them. But you see, it creates the impression that it's health that is not employing this pool, when in fact it is the primary employer that were previously contracted by the department. And we understand that these are attributed to the legacies of the previous regime, unemployment, inequality and poverty, that when people are out of employment, they will want to do anything possible to gain their employment back. But it's just unfortunate that they were not employed by health, but by the previous companies employed by health. So I would want to appeal that the organized trade union representing the security officials and security officials themselves, if they can then go and protest in the premises of those companies. So I've tried at the level of the department to link them with the current companies, but it is just not possible.
Here's a quick one for you, very, very quickly. I mean, is there an appetite for not outsourcing security and actually having them working for the Department of Health directly?
We have done the study supported by the institutions of higher learning. There is no evidence that suggests that insourcing will only create the problem of employment. Of unemployment. What we'll do is when you're combining both insourcing and outsourcing with technology, that is the best model that as a department we're implementing.
Okay.
So whether we employ them permanently, it may not necessarily address the root cause, which is the rate of unemployment in the country.
Okay, got that. Thanks for that call. Much appreciate you listening in and calling in, Rosani, here on the National Pulse. Let's get to other callers. In fact, before I get to Colin, there's another question. Ashraf, terror attacks are imminent since government is on sleeper mode. Government doesn't know who's in and out of the country. Honestly, I don't know what you mean by that. I think it's as sweeping a statement as the UK one. Let me read it again so you can get what you're saying. You're saying terror attacks is imminent. That's what you're saying, is imminent, since government is on sleeper mode. Government doesn't know who's in and who's out of the country. Okay. Colin, go ahead. Hi.
Good afternoon, Ashraf.
Afternoon.
That voice message I heard just now, we don't want America and Britain to tell us or warn us. We're quite capable of looking after ourselves. Now I would like to tell that voice message person, where was our Secret Service, our security, our police, the rest of our so-called soldiers, everybody. Where were they when we had that Zuma riot? They were caught with their pants down. Our borders are open. Anybody, they don't even know who's coming in and who's going out. We can have terrorists, not that I hope ever have them here, but I mean, we don't know. Our Secret Service, our police, NPA, they can't even get the Guptas to come to this country. Where can we look after ourselves? We got to try and also take a little bit of advice. If somebody tells you there'll be an attack, take it not with a pinch of salt.
Okay, accepting, Colin, the same people have said it like 4 or 5 times and nothing has come out of it. I'm just making the point. Colin, thanks for that call. Certainly, but I think Colin's point is important around what happened in KZN 2 years ago, but also there's been lots of evidence where South Africa's security in terms of information has been found wanting, and you actually just wonder about South African intelligence. I think it's an important point. Let's get the news headlines now with N. Musa.
Good afternoon. Thanks, Ashraf. In the headlines, there's more than 30,000 teaching vacancies countrywide. This was revealed by the Basic Education Minister, Angie Motshekga, in a written parliamentary reply. The Gauteng High Court in Pretoria has ordered that the Office of the Public Protector furnish former Public Protector, Advocate Busisiwe Mkhwebane, with the records and the reasons that inform the decision not to pay the 10 million rand gratuity by tomorrow. And Australian police have arrested a man they say was the ringleader of a drug trafficking network, potentially ending the mystery of cocaine bricks washing up on Australian beaches over the past few months. Details on these and other stories at 5 with Greg House.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, protest action in the Rabie Ridge area, so avoid the Moorofontein Road, Dane Road area. In Soweto, the N17 is closed between the N1 highway and Soweto Highway Circle due to protest action. New Canada Road is closed between New Canada and Soweto Highway due to protest action, and Soweto Highway is closed between Klipspruit Valley Road Circle and Imik Drive due to protest action. The N1 northbound in Midrand has a stationary vehicle just before New Road exit. In Pretoria, Roger Dyson Road westbound is queuing at the R101, and SK Mpahleli Drive northbound has delays towards Mabopane Highway. In KZN, the N2 southbound is queuing through Amanzimtoti. The M4 is slow moving in the Tongaat Beach area. The N2 southbound, an earlier lost load just before Prospection exit, has been cleared, but traffic is still slow moving. The M7 is queuing at the Bel Air Wakesley Road junction. The N3 westbound in Pietermaritzburg has a stationary truck just before Market Road exit. The R620 is closed in the central Margate area due to storm damage, and Chris Hani Road westbound is queuing at the N2 highway. In Cape Town, the M3 southbound is slow moving through Bishop's Court. The N7 Jake Harwell Drive is slow moving at Voortrekker Road. The M5 southbound is slow moving towards Krumboom Road exit. The N2 Nelson Mandela Boulevard outbound is queuing towards Hospital Bend, and protest action reported in the Lowry's Village, so avoid travel through the area. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
Right, Zai, you'll tell us about the penalty shootout, not now, later on.
Yes.
Right.
Right
what
now,
else?
Spotlight is on the Springboks. Yes, they're going to be adding more glitter to their already illustrious cap, with nominations across the board at the upcoming SA Sports Awards. Hot on the heels of Siya Kolisi's recognition as one of Time Magazine's 100 most influential, he, along with Ibn Etzebet, they could scoop up the Sports Star of the Year and the People's Choice Award. The Boks, also not resting on their World Cup laurels, are contending for Team of the Year, while their former coach Jacques Linaber could walk away with Coach of the Year. Mark Alexander is up for Sports Administrator of the Year, which marks a potential sweep for SA Rugby, also vying for the Federation of the Year. Meanwhile, Manny Libbok could clinch the Newcomer of the Year title, with Amy Barrett-Theron nominated for Technical Officer of the Year. Now, Proteas women's seamer Ayabonga Kaka became the first black woman to reach 100 caps at the international level in the country. Her father, Kaya Mama, has shared the people who inspired her to this level, speaking during the third and final ODI. That was the match between the Proteas women and Sri Lanka in Potchefstroom last night. The father, Mama, who was at the venue to watch his daughter making history in South African as well as international sport. Now, he says the distance between Middlesrift, which is Ayabonga's hometown, and Mdingi, where South Africa's legendary cricketer Makaya Ntini comes from, is less than 40 kilometres. Ntini was the first black men's cricketer to win 100 caps, and Mama says he remains Kaka's role model.
The development is great. You've mentioned Makaya Ntini. Makaya Ntini is Ayabonga's role model. If you can ask her any time who is her role model, Makaya Ntini comes to the fore immediately. And as you have mentioned that area, I mean, you've got Yongams who comes in that area as well. So cricket is big. The development is happening. Yes, more development is needed because we need more of the Ayabongas, especially with women cricket development. So much can be done.
Now, Cricket South Africa thrilled to announce the second season of the T20 Women's Club Championship, set to take place from the 19th to the 21st of April in Potchefstroom. Building upon the success of last year's inaugural championship, this year's tournament promises to be a showcase of talent and determination as 6 elite clubs from across the country vie for the prestigious title. Now, following intense regional qualifiers, each provincial champion has earned the right to compete on the national stage, embodying the spirit of excellence and competition. And motorsport, Ferrari Charles Leclerc says teammate Carlos Sainz was getting more out of the car than him in the battle with Formula One champions Red Bull, but he's not worried about the situation. Sainz, who is leaving the Italian team at the end of the season to make way for 7-time world champion Lewis Hamilton, is only 4 points behind Leclerc, despite missing the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix due to appendicitis. The Spaniard has finished on the podium on all 3 of the races he started and won in Australia on his return from surgery. So, we wanted to know the all-important question today.
I wanted to know. When were penalty shootouts first, invented, established? Like, when did they start? And what was life like before penalty shootouts? So, when games ended in a draw?
Yeah, it was the coin toss. Okay, but
so there was a coin toss.
Yes, there was a coin toss, and then I think the beautiful game decided that they weren't going to do it like the way cricket does it. So they did away with the coin toss, and they brought in the penalty shootout. I think it was back in 1970. Yes, way before I was born.
Okay,
and so exciting to see that. That's how they sorted out the winners from.
So then someone decided, hold it, if it's a draw, we can't play forever, but we can't toss a coin, but let's have a tiebreaker, which is the penalty shootout.
Which is the penalty shootout.
So 1970, thereabouts?
So it started in 1970, introduced by the International Football Association Board, or the IFAB, and then in 1976 it was used at a first major tournament, and that was the European Championships, and the Yugoslav Cup in 1952 apparently had some sort of a penalty shootout.
Okay, now we know. But I'll tell you what, love the fact when listeners engage with some of the issues we raise. And there's someone who I think is maybe smarter than you and I. So let's get his or her opinion about the penalty shootout.
Good afternoon, Ashraf and the team. This is Bennett in Merafong in the West Rand. Come on, Ashraf. Remember that when in the Champions League, there are away games and home games. Now, after the 2 legs, if the scores are level, the team that scored more goals away from home progresses to the next round. That is what used to happen. But now the away goals rule has been done away with, and now we're going to extra time in a penalty shootout. That's my sport, Ashraf.
You are auditioning for a job here, but listen, Tumi is not here today, Zai's here, but if she's ill in the next hour, you can pitch up. But let me then correct you to a degree, okay? So yes, away goals count double is a rule that UEFA put into place whenever it was. But I mean, what happens if both games end in equal draws, 1-1 home, 1-1 away? So even at European club football, the penalty shootout was an established thing for a long, long time. So there you have it. Okay.
And that's your sport. We'll have more. Top of the hour. I'm Zai Khan.
Absolutely. We'll have more on that. In fact, we'll have not sport, but the sport of politics coming up with Zaki Ahmad. Do not miss that after 5 o'clock.
Economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
All right, we are, by the way, further comments on any of the issues we're talking about, let me know. We spoke about the USA, Iran being threatened, in fact, that the US will impose sanctions on them. We spoke about it, was it yesterday, the day before? In fact, I understand now that's happened, okay? New sanctions have been imposed on Iran by the United States, okay? So things certainly moving in that direction and what that really means. And then you can throw in the other part about South Africa's scare of a terror attack in this country. And I'm sure you have strong views on that if you haven't heard it. The UK suggesting that effectively an alert for their nationals if they're visiting South Africa, threats of a terror attack. Let's get to money issues now with a market update with Makwe Masilela, the Chief Investment Officer at the Makwe Fund Managers. Makwe, good chatting to you. As always, thank you.
Afternoon.
Right.
Afternoon. Let me stick to the facts that I know.
You want to pick up about interim results, right? Go ahead.
And those were very impressive interim results coming out of Oceania. Remember, these are the Lucky Star guys, and the guys expect their profits to increase by almost 100%, and that is the headline earnings per share, and that's mainly due to higher fish meal and fish oil sales volume coming out of Dave Brooks subsidiary, and also managing to get a record US pricing, and the Lucky Star improved the sales volumes, as we know that it continues to be one of those affordable proteins around, but the overall performance was moderated by lower wild-caught seafood sales volumes, but market participants are happy. The share prices we're talking is up 7%.
Right, and then you have an update on other things, local and global markets?
Yeah. Ashraf, the current market reaction is mainly being driven by the pause in the increase in bonds. But now, another Fed official reiterated that interest rates can be held steady and there's no need to rush to cut rates. And we know that the US Fed chair said the same thing, and the dollar has been in demand of late as strong US economic data and persistent inflation have prompted investors to drastically rethink the changes of the Fed cutting rates anytime soon, and also elevated geopolitical tensions have added to the dollar's safe haven appeal, and that prompted losses for the likes of the rand. And the Bank of France governor said the European Central Bank should cut interest rates in June, and that is to avoid falling behind inflation curve, as they can be a high cost in terms of economic activity and employment. And yes, we've seen that the US have imposed sanctions on Iran, and also we know that the guys have reimposed sanctions as well when it comes to Venezuela. We know the European leaders are also considering sanctions against Iran, but oil prices extended losses on hopes of easing tension in the Middle East, and also traders are focusing on a bleaker demand outlook. Basically, traders were trying to unwind that geopolitical risk premium. Brent crude is down 0.2% at $87 a barrel, and gold traders' reasoning seems to be different from that of oil traders, as the yellow metal continues to shine, worried more about geopolitical tensions and outweighing prospects of higher for longer U.S. interest rates. Gold, as we are talking, is up 1% at 2,383. Platinum doing the opposite, down 1% at 943, and the Dow is up 0.6, S&P up 0.3, FTSE up 0.3 as well. CAC up 0.5%, the DAX is up 0.2, and the JS is up 0.5%. With our financials up almost 1%, industrials up 0.8%, but our resources are flat, and unfortunately the rand is not doing that great against the major currencies. It's trading at 19.13 to the US dollar, 23.81 to the pound, and 20.37 to the euro.
And that's what we're going to leave it. Thank you so much. We will chat tomorrow. I know that. right? And of course, we'll have another update around markets coming up around, 25 to 6 or thereabouts. By the way, we've been speaking about the legacy of Siya Kolisi. If you want to add any thoughts to that legacy, feel free to comment. In terms of where does it go from here? We know what he's done. What more now does he need to be doing? There's a range of voice notes from across the country. What a privilege. Here's some of them.
Afternoon, Ashraf. I'm Svito from Guatemala. Thank you to Katie for bringing us Anele Mda in her show yesterday. Initially, I thought I was going to vote for Rise Mzansi nationally, since I'm in Gauteng, Action SA provincially, as well as BOSA regionally. With the appearance of Anele, I'm now going to vote for her nationally, Action SA provincially, as well as BOSA regionally. But I would like to urge her not to take my vote and work with any of the so-called leftist organizations, especially Umkhonto weSisu and EFF, because those organizations, they are all about the politics of the stomach. I think coalition between DA and ANC could work, even though they may be in denial of it. I wouldn't mind her working with any of those. Thank you.
All right, there we are. Interesting one. The power of the independent. Do listen, by the way, to my chat with Zaki Ahmad coming up shortly and see what he says and whether he himself will, can I say, form a coalition with Anele Mda. Interesting things happen in the world. Let's see what plays out there, right? But your thoughts in terms of what you want, how much power do you have in telling the person you're voting for, in this case the independent, to say, do not go into coalition with X, Y, Z, and whether they will listen to you. Right, here's some more.
You know what did my pulse racing is an interview this morning on Municipal Watch from Kathy. What's going on in North with Mascoslana? Yo, have you heard that interview this morning? That hour this morning. It is like a movie. The way they steal money, Ashraf. It was. I'm probably gonna have nightmares tonight. The way the ANC councils are stealing there. Oh, my word. Yo.
It is like a movie. The days of our lives. I didn't listen to it. I was in a meeting, but now that you've told me, I need to listen to the podcast of that show hosted by Kathy. Right, here's some more.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. Vincent Risumati here in Tsakani in Brakpan. Ashraf, in the case of former public protector Mkhwebane versus the incumbent public protector's office, it is becoming clear now that they are not going to have it as easily as they thought they would, the public protector, because apparently they thought that it was going to be a walk in the park. Now it gets more complicated with the order that has been made today, that they pay the costs and that they give the minutes by tomorrow of the meeting where it was decided that she should not be paid. So I think this is an indication of greater things to come. I think there could be a twist in this case going forward. Thank you, Ashraf. Vincent here.
Hey, great. Thanks for calling in. A twist in that case. Let's see how that one then plays out. There's a couple of more comments. In fact, Ashraf Gardner, well, that's me. As it stands now, the UN is just a joke. You haven't told us why you think so, right? That the UN is just a joke. I certainly don't like the Security Council aspect. I must tell you now, the counter to that is like some of the big Security Council members are the ones that fund the UN. I'm not saying I agree with that. I'm saying that's what their counter argument is, right? Another one, hi, afternoon, hashtag My National Pulse. In fact, it should be The National Pulse, just to tell you. Hashtag The National Pulse, right? Jobs, it might be helpful if we were to share existing jobs where this could be possible, while on the other hand, new job positions should take in two incumbents sharing. Statisticians, economists, labor union, they should come to the party and how to address such a program whose aims would be to bring down crime levels if it's true that unemployment and crime are related. I'll tell you what, let me have a chat with my production team about it, because I do agree that, if there's any way we can facilitate the finding of jobs for people in the country, we absolutely must do that, right? Let's get to a caller now speaking for someone who's linked to the DA, Bonginkosi Madikizela, wants to talk about service delivery. Good chatting to you. Hi.
Hi, Ashraf, and good afternoon to your listeners.
Right, thanks for joining the National Pulse. Is your pulse racing now, 1 month before the election?
Oh, yes. It's going to be very interesting elections, and I'm looking forward to it.
Okay.
Look, I just want to make a point about comparing parties when it comes to service delivery, because we like to make this, throw away some statements without facts. I mean, the facts as things stand is that the party or the province that has created most jobs in South Africa is the Western Cape, where it is in government. And there should be no dispute about that. And jobs is one of the things that is a big issue for South Africans. And secondly, when you look at how the DA is governing, I mean, most municipalities that are governed by the DA can get clean audits. And this is a clear indication that, I mean, you can't compare the DA with the party that is in government currently. And the third thing that I want to say, Ashraf, is this statement that the DA is governing well in one part and not well in other parts. And I totally disagree with that. And I think we just make that statement without facts. Here's the thing. In South Africa, we are dealing with the legacy of apartheid, which is, I mean, it's something that's going to take us very, very long time to deal with. But the key issue here is that in a case of the Western Cape, you have a government that's got 100 rand, but has to deal with challenges that need 1 million rands. Now, what you look at in that situation is where that money is spent and how that money is spent. It might not make the impact that you expect it to make, but the reality is that when the demand far outweighs the resources, that's what happened.
Okay, I'm gonna push you, although because we don't have much time. I mean, I hear what you're saying, okay, and the same can apply to national government as well. To say they need to feed 60 million people, they've only got enough money for 10 million people. My point is, I don't think, I think the DA is getting a lot of things right. But to suggest they're getting everything right in the Western Cape, well, then show me what's happened to the Cape Flats. That's my point.
No, but Ashraf, again, that's a point. The ANC government gets the money, and most of the money gets stolen. And that is based on evidence, the facts. The DA gets the money that it gets, which is nowhere near enough the challenges that we face. But the money gets spent where it's supposed to be spent, and that is backed by the evidence from the AG, for example. So that's the difference here.
All right, we've got that, and I'll tell you what, that's why we have an election coming up on the 29th of May. Let the people decide whether you have a point, I have a point, or whoever else has the biggest point of it all, isn't it? Thanks for that call. Much appreciated there. Bongi Nkosi, Madikizela, right, on that opinion. Right, further opinions, again, who you're voting for, why you're voting, what do you want to do. The importance of the vote, I think, is particularly important about the currency of a vote, even if you're not sure which party you're going to vote for. It's something that I've spoken about before. Be strategic if you can't really vote for a party of your choice. Let's have another. In fact, we get into election watch mode after this.
The Northwest Legislature's Portfolio Committee on Premier, Finance, Corporate Governance, Human Settlement and Traditional Affairs, led by Honorable Aaron Motswana, will embark on public hearings throughout the province on the Division of Revenue Bill B4 2024 and Northwest Appropriation Bill on the 19th April at Ngangamudil Mulema District in Tukrani Community Hall, at Dr. Kenneth Kaunda District in Banquet Hall Potchefstroom, at Dr. Ruth Somuti Mompati in Kismet Community Hall in Vryburg, at Bujanala District in Moretele Municipality Hall. All hearings at 10.
Match day number 30 will deliver high emotions and tension. 14th and 15th placed VfL Wolfsburg and VfL Bochum must go beyond their limits in the final stretch. Who will climb the ladder to victory? This is the Bundesliga. Football as it's meant to be. Catch VfL Wolfsburg versus VfL Bochum this Saturday, 20 April at 3 p.m. live on SABC 3. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. #We love it here. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
SAFM Sunrise with Stephen Grootes.
It's so interesting that you say that conversations around politics, women don't participate. So, I mean, what you're suggesting is that it's not just in community meetings, it's almost across the entire public sphere that I can see testosterone dominates.
Absolutely. Participation is not only numbers. Participation is
intentionally seeking the voices of the voiceless. And in some instances, it seems as if, as a society, we can understand it. But we have not shifted patriarchal power. I don't think any political party has sat down and basically said, how can we enable your participation?
Lebo Romafoko, GBV activist, executive director at Oxfam.
SAFM Sunrise with Stephen Grootes, 6 to 9 a.m. X at SAFM Radio and at Ashraf Garda.
Right, we certainly have an election coming up, and we have a feature called the Election Watch. And part of that, we speak to different people about different aspects of the election. One of them is the issue of not so much voter apathy, but voter disillusionment. So what does that really mean? Let's try and understand the position from the Kagiso Trust and their chairperson, Mankoni Ntsaba. Good chatting to you, and thanks for joining us here on the National Pulse.
Good afternoon, Ashraf, and good afternoon to your listeners.
Thank you. Right, you have a view on that, right?
Yes, we have a view on that, in that we have been very concerned as Kagiso Trust about the declining number of ballots that are cast every year. You will notice from statistics from the IEC that in every election that we've had since 1994, there's been an increase in the number of registered voters. But on the contrary, there's been a sharp decrease in the number of ballots cast. And this has been concerning to us. And many people have, labeled this voter apathy, and we rather call it voter disillusionment.
What's the difference between the two?
The apathy is about people being disinterested and not caring. Whereas disillusionment is that people care, they are interested, but things are not done according to what they would wish to see being done.
And yet this is at a time when there's an increase of political parties, right? So there's a huge number of parties contesting the election. So the choice on the menu is bigger and broader than we've ever had.
Indeed, the choice of the menu is bigger, but are there interesting items on the menu? That's another question. And with the experience that people have had previously, they've chosen certain menus on their plates, and some of them have come out to be distasteful. So that is what causes disillusionment among people. Look at what is happening at the statistics. We are told that the statistics in the last local government elections went down to 46%, which means 46% of registered voters actually cast their ballots, and others haven't. This year we have 27.7 million voters, and we are trying by all means, together with our partners in the IEC, to get as much voting as possible, especially targeting the young people.
So how are you going about doing that, and why do you feel, as the Kagiso Trust, that it's so important that you do so?
Yes, maybe let's take a step back and say, what is Kagiso Trust and what is our what brings us to this conversation? Kagiso Trust is a 35-year-old NGO that was founded mainly by political activists, and many of them, if you talk to them and if you read their stories and you hear what they went through quite a lot, and they sacrificed quite a lot. And one of the reasons why they sacrificed quite a lot was to really give us this democracy that we have today and the right to vote. Now, if that right that has been won through people dying and people suffering and being tortured is now not being used, it's a very concerning fact to Kagiso Trust, especially because many of those activists, or rather some of those activists, are founders of Kagiso Trust.
Understandably so, yeah. So what is it that you want to do? What is it that you can do?
We have developed a media campaign that we have labeled Remember Me. Remember Me is to say, do we really remember why and how we got to this point where we are going to vote? Do we remember those people who actually sacrificed for us to get to where we are today? And we have found that, and indeed, our young people, our children, were not there during those days. And to them, names like Tutu, like Beas Nodier, your French Chicanis, your Busaks, and the like, do not mean much to them. And we are trying to make them understand what those people went through, and many other activists. I'm just mentioning a drop in the ocean. Those are the people who got us to where we are, and we really have to take this voting seriously.
And you think if we highlight the importance of Remember Me, that means remember my journey, how I got to vote for the first time, that will get people to understand the importance of that vote that they don't quite get up to now.
Archbishop Desmond Tutu actually said, I may not be quoting him verbatim, the first time he went to vote, it felt like falling in love for the first time. And at that time, he was already over 60. And when someone of that caliber takes voting so seriously and feels the way he felt, I think it is incumbent upon us, all of us, to then invoke that spirit of those people of those days, how they felt when they went to vote for the first time.
I think it's a good point.
Voting today, it's exactly the same as voting for the first time. But I think we need really to assist, especially our young people, in interrogating the politics of today rather than disengaging, because many of them have disengaged and disconnected.
Well, I'll tell you what, that's where we're going to leave it, Mankoni Ntaba. I think it's an important point. I mean, I certainly think about the choices you have, but as you said, make the good choices so you don't have this tummy ache that will prevent you getting a bad choice off the menu. But in the future, I think Remember Me is a campaign that I think we, on this show, the National Pulse, looking forward to collaborating with you guys maybe sometime in the next few days, in fact. Thank you for your time. Much appreciated. There you are. Remember me. Remember all those people who got to vote for the first time and what it meant to them. In fact, do you remember you when you voted for the very first time? Let's get the news now. It's just gone 5 o'clock with Greg House.
Thank you, Ashraf. In this news update, thousands of teacher vacancies. An Australian drug kingpin arrested. Good day to you. There's more than 30,000 teaching vacancies countrywide. This was revealed by the Basic Education Minister, Angie Motshekga, in a written parliamentary reply to a question posed by a DA MP. Ulama Macha has the story.
The reply indicates that KwaZulu-Natal tops the list with more than 7,000 vacancies. The Eastern Cape has more than 6,000, followed by Limpopo with nearly 5,000 vacancies. The Western Cape is the fourth province with highest vacancy rate. The reply indicates that KwaZulu-Natal tops the list with more than 7,000 vacancies. The Eastern Cape has more than 6,000, followed by Limpopo with nearly 5,000 vacancies. The Western Cape is the fourth province with highest vacancy rate of more than 4,000, followed by Gauteng with nearly 4,000 vacancies.
High Court in Pretoria has ordered the Office of the Public Protector to furnish the former Public Protector, Busisiwe Mkhwebane, with the records and the reasons that informed the decision not to pay her a 10 million rand gratuity by tomorrow. The legal counsel on behalf of the office had argued that the papers filed by the applicant didn't compel the respondents to relinquish the records. Mkhwebane launched an urgent review over the non-payment of the gratuity after the PP's office allegedly informed her that she would not be receiving it due to her impeachment last year. The Chapter 9 institution, which is the first respondent in the matter, has been ordered to pay the costs. Judge Colleen Collis.
In the present matter, these steps had not been followed as the record and the reasons for the decision had not been furnished. The failure to have furnished the record has the unintended consequence that the application to date is not ripe for hearing, as all the necessary affidavits that ought to have been filed is not before the court to date.
In election news, Action SA has vowed to speed up the insourcing of security guards and cleaners in the eThekwini municipality in Durban. The party has kick-started its electioneering trail in KwaZulu-Natal. Today it held a meeting with some of the security guards and cleaners who want to be insourced in the city of Durban. These workers say private companies are not complying with the minimum wage.
I-Action SA nginalo ithemba ngayo ngoba
I believe that Action SA will be able to resolve our challenges as security guards. In Johannesburg, Mashaba was able to install security guards, which eThekwini municipality has failed to do. We want Action SA to intervene in private companies. These companies are exploiting us. They are not complying with the minimum wage. Some companies are paying people 300 rand. Some are paying people just above 2,000 rand. With that money, we are unable to...
Meanwhile, Action SA's premier candidate in KZN, Zokhele Ngqango, says the party wants to restore the dignity of workers.
And we strongly believe in insourcing. We know that we can save a lot of money, but we want to bring dignity because these security guards and cleaners are being exploited by private companies. As we speak today in KwaZulu-Natal, government says they have got no money. So the companies that employ security guards and cleaners are not paying them salaries. As we speak, health department, those are in hospitals, are not being paid. Public works, if you go to Ulundi, legislature, are not being paid. The company will say they're waiting for the department to pay them. The department will say they've got no money.
Australian police have arrested a man they say was the ringleader of a drug trafficking network, potentially ending the mystery of cocaine bricks washing up on Australian beaches. The BBC's Celia Hatton has more.
Beginning last December, dozens of barnacle-encrusted bricks of cocaine have been turning up on New South Wales beaches. Each brick is worth at least $200,000. They've been found by fishermen, dog walkers and police, with few answers to the story behind them. But now investigators say a 36-year-old man was behind a botched plan to import 900 kilograms of drugs into Australia.
The top stories of this more than 30,000 teaching vacancies countrywide. That's SAFM News. I'm Greg Khoes.
Welcome to SFM Sports. In the headlines, it's a rugby, big moves for the Sharks as they switch up their squad, resting their aces for the Crunch URC match against Glasgow. And we also have some more for you in regards to the athletics. There's plenty from Akani Simbine. All this and more at around 5:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, some advance notice with regards to the R21. It will be closed between Nelma Pierce Drive and Olifantsfontein Road from 6 a.m. until 6 p.m. on Saturday and 6 a.m. until 12 noon on Sunday for Eskom works. The N12 and R24 westbound in Bedfordview has a crash just before Giluli's interchange. That's queuing traffic on both routes, and Modderfontein Road eastbound in Kempton Park has delays near Gautrain Bridge. In KZN, the N2 southbound is queuing through Amanzim Toti. The M4 is slow moving in the Tongaat Beach area. The N2 southbound has a crash before Prospection exit, and Chris Hani Road westbound is queuing at the N2 highway. In Cape Town, on the R300 southbound, a crash reported just after Van Riebeeck Road. The N7 Jakes Hartwell Drive southbound is slow moving at Voortrekker Road. On the N2 inbound, a fatal pedestrian crash reported just before the N7 Jakes Hartwell Drive junction. The left lane has been closed off to road users, and protest action in Siloris Village, so avoid travel through the area. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide, leading the conversation.
Attention to all music lovers. The highly anticipated Metro FM Music Awards are finally here.
Y'all ready?
Purchase your tickets to gain access to the awards ceremony and the live concert happening on the 27th of April 2024 at Mbombela Stadium, Mpumalanga.
Yo, we about to have some fun in here.
You can now secure your tickets from 300 Rand at www.computicket.co.za.
Yeah, man, this is a big night.
With a star-studded lineup of DJs and live performances, don't miss your chance to be part of this unforgettable celebration of talent and music excellence.
Come on, Mbombela, come through. Let's do this.
Hashtag MMA24, Black to the Future. Metro FM, it's where you want to be.
The Tunisian red and yellow outfit want to smile out of the field of play to emphasize why they are also called the Smiling One. But Masandawana believe there's a humongous reason why they are Bafana Bastyle. This is the first leg of the Total Energies CAF Champions League semi-final. Experience the exhilaration of African football. ES Tunis FC tackles Mamelodi Sundowns FC. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4 and SABC 3. This Saturday, 20 April at 8:30 p.m. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCsport.com. Hashtag We Love It Here. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
Often the WhatsApps and the text messages and voice notes that we get and the calls reflect, how you see the National Pulse, right? And we've got a message from someone saying, what nonsense people are saying the DA government is best. Did these people go to Khayelitsha? Did they go to Lavender Hill? Not even black middle-class people, dare to come near those places. Well, I have to tell you, that exactly is my point. If we are critical of the ANC in terms of how they govern 9 provinces and national, we must also praise them when they do it right. By the same token, we cannot say everything the DA does is right. We must praise where they do it well. We must also be critical. And the examples that the Lavender Hills still exist, and the Khayelitshas and the Mitchell's Plains and the other Cape Flats communities still exist. I'm talking about Heideveld. I'm just thinking about that now, in Cape Town. That also talks to who are the people that governs it and what are they doing to uplift them from their own poverty, just like the ANC itself is stripping up on not being able to uplift the majority of the people from their poverty 30 years into democracy. It gets you thinking about this point. I think just about every home family WhatsApp group is talking about the elections. In fact, they're talking about maybe 2 things. They're talking about what's happened to load shedding, something we've discussed, and they're just puzzled. And then they naturally segue, well, you know why? It's because of the elections. So the election conversation is top of the debate agenda in just about most homes, I would think. And you can tell me what it is that you guys are talking about on your WhatsApp home platforms. And I mean homes, okay? I don't mean political parties and lobby groups. Tell me what are you guys talking about in terms of the politics of the country. And as always, you can engage with us in multiple ways. You can call into 086 000 2032. You can WhatsApp in text or voice note form, 0614 104 107. You can also, you can listen, not just nationwide 104 to 107. You can listen on streaming live, and that gives you an audio option via SAFM radio or also on the SABC Plus app platform. But also you can catch us on YouTube and via SAFM radio on the Twitter or X platform. There are pieces of conversations we have. You'll see us visually running all these segments of interviews, and you can check that up even right now. Okay, let's so give me your thoughts on that. We'll talk to, by the way, every Thursday in the lead up to the election, we have this feature called the Election Monitor. We speak to a series of different people, leaders of political parties in the main or key decision makers of those parties, and we get their thoughts on effectively how they're tackling their run-up to the election. Well, I'll tell you what, we have someone who, does he have a party? He's an independent. Is that a party? We'll find out. Zaki Ahmed comes up in a moment.
The National Pulse, weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
In fact, I want to just check if we are connected with Zaki Ahmed. There's sometimes a disconnection that takes place. But anyway, having said that, Zaki Ahmed is with us. So this time round, he's this activist. Everybody knows him as an activist. I think he's been an activist, probably like the longest serving activist in the country for a long, long time. And I mean it as a compliment, Zaki. So good chatting to you. Hi.
Hello. That's a good one.
I think it is, because you've just been an activist.
47 and a half years.
Well, you've just given the answer then. Anyway, so perhaps it's a good way to start with you as this activist, right? You've taken your activism into the formal political space. But before I even get into what you want to do, what for you then is the state of South Africa? I mean, you can pronounce on it right now. What are you? So you're giving your own State of the Nation address to the nation via the pulse of the nation. Go ahead and tell us.
I think perhaps to start at a different place. If we look globally, everywhere almost, people are disappointed in political parties. They've lost trust in political parties. And that is also true in South Africa. And that means representative democracy is in crisis. And this is given political parties and leaders who are stirring as much hate as they can or spreading disinformation. This is also true because economies have left most people poor. Inequalities increased in a terrible way. And we find here in South Africa, for instance, the price of potatoes going up 110%. Over the next few months, immediately now, we're seeing a major increase in the maize price. So people are feeling insecure. In our context, state capture has hollowed out in an incredible way the capacity of the state. And no matter what anyone says, we cannot do anything unless we fix the state. And I'll come back to that in a moment. But in this election, looking forward, we have to say the following. Over the last 30 years, we have seen some fantastic changes in the country. Fantastic. We've had people connected to the grid, people who never had electricity before. We've seen people get homes that didn't have homes before, and that homes aren't the best. They really have increased spatial injustice, but it is a roof over someone's head. We've seen people connected to water. These are important milestones in the history of the country. We can have this conversation on the basis that neither of us are going to get arrested depending on what we say or do. Now, on top of this, you find that the economy grew extensively until 2008, when we had a very serious collapse in the economy because of the global financial crisis. Now, in the 30 years, the first 5 years, we had the most superb parliament, one that invited people in, one where politicians, or rather ones where members of parliament acted like members of parliament, not like politicians. They would invite communities to give evidence, they would invite organizations, and they would invite progressive experts, because none of those people, whether it was Dr. Aben Komo, whether it was Dr. Esop Jassat, whether it was Ms. Albertina Sisulu, any of them, none of them, Ben Turok, none of them thought they knew everything. They wanted to learn, and they also wanted to do the best that they could. From 1999, with the arms deal, with Hitachi Eskom deal, with HIV, the ANC members were silenced. And that meant that Parliament shut itself off from listening to people. That has meant that Parliament assisted and promoted state capture and corruption. And that led to a corrosion of state capacity. The implementation of affirmative action and black economic empowerment has been a disaster. Not the principle itself. The principles are correct, that historically marginalized communities who are poor need to be uplifted, that broad-based economic empowerment will of course, deal with working class people. But what has happened is that the ANC has regrettably allowed that legislation to be used to appoint people who are corrupt, people who are incompetent so that they cannot see what is wrong. It has gotten rid of really fantastic, really fantastic black civil servants and white civil servants in order to pursue an agenda that was against Section 195 of the Constitution, which requires an open, accountable, efficient government. I don't want to go on too long about how bad state capture is, but I want to end here, perhaps, and say this. This election is one that opens up the possibility of violence for the first time since 1994. Why? We are witnessing a terrible return to tribalism, and particularly in KwaZulu-Natal, we've already witnessed an attempted coup by former as allies in that province. We now seeing something that has historically happened in the Cape, in the Western Cape, is the fear that coloured people have of black African people, together now with a much deepened racism within the coloured community, and let me not speak in a generalist way. There's a hard core of racists. So, for instance, you have one of the political parties saying anyone who's come to Cape Town, to the Western Cape from the Eastern Cape since 1994 must pack up, sell up, and go. Now, for me, that is an horrific statement that encourages war. Similarly, you have another one saying that the Western Cape is culturally Afrikaans, like Zululand, KwaZulu-Natal is culturally Zulu, and therefore it should only be open to people speaking Afrikaans. You have xenophobia being whipped up. So what is important for all of us is to look at how we can first build working class unity. And when I say working class unity, I mean unity among all poor people, rural and urban, but specifically working class unity between black African and coloured, between people irrespective of tribe or religion. These things are essential to be able to take our country forward. And I think if I had to say this again, for me, the possibilities of a dangerous time ahead, economically dangerous, socially dangerous, and so on, means that politicians and political parties have to be careful how we speak to each other, because we will need each other come the 31st of May.
Well, I'll tell you what, it's interesting you ended on that. We will need each other, which is something that I've often thought about, because I not just now, it's election season, but even for the better part of a year, I watch these political parties and I watch them argue with each other, and I've seen them on TV even in the last week, right? Almost oblivious to the national cause, like what is the national cause and really what do we need that's right for the entire country? And all they're doing is they're squabbling with each other, and we are onlookers, like we're watching a game of rugby and you're watching players scrum at each other and come out all messy, and we just have a bit of a laugh, and that's what it is. So I think you've raised really important issues. In fact, in many ways, you are the national pulse. You're the manifestation of the national pulse, and that's how we'll talk to you about it. So what I'm going to do, Zaki, I'm going to pick up on some of the things you've said, right? We would invite callers. So what we'll do is maybe we won't take the calls right away, but you can WhatsApp, text or voice note immediately, and we'll play them maybe just after 5:30 thereabouts. Certainly won't take the calls now until then as well. But feel free to do that, and you can comment, you can challenge. I mean, some people clearly challenging Zaki Ahmad already about his issues about the DA, for example. You can certainly do that. And you can also post on our social media platforms, in particular on the live Facebook accounts we have, as well as on the Twitter or X platform, and just tag SAFM Radio and myself, Ashraf Garda, and look for that, post with that hashtag, The National Pulse, as we connect with Zaki Ahmad and get a sense of what he feels about the National Pulse right after this.
Join Smile Foundation for a movie night under the stars featuring Sing 2 on Saturday, 20th of April at Old Ed Sports Grounds. To book, visit smilefoundationsa.org. This is an SABC supported initiative.
For the first time in 30 years, the ANC is set to lose its majority. Opposition parties have united as the multi-party charter for South Africa.
A strong democratic alliance with a proven track record
Can anchor a new government that serves the people.
But a new government that works is only possible if you vote for it. Let's unite and rescue South Africa. Vote DA.
This political party advertisement was paid for by the political party concerned. The views expressed in this advertisement are those of the political party and not those of the SABC.
Five-time champions plan to capitalize on home ground advantage, while 11-time champs have a huge strategy to dominate the battle from the first whistle. This is the first leg of the Total Energies CAF Champions League semi-final. Experience the exhilaration of African football. TP Mazembe FC versus Al Ahly FC, live on SABC1 this Saturday, 20 April at 2:30 p.m. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Hashtag We Love It Here. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
X at SFM Radio, and at Ashraf Garda.
Now, Zaki Ahmad, of course, with me, and Zaki, I'll say this, all the issues you've raised, we may discuss some of the technicalities of whether you're right here or not, but what I can say, I think with certainty, there is a grave disillusionment or a growing disillusionment amongst many, many people, not just with the governing party, but with parties and with Parliament, right, in terms of its role. And I think something you've alluded to earlier on as well, right? So having said that, your position to step in to what I'd call formal activism, although one may not suggest that your informal activism is any less, I'm sure you get that, formal activism via Parliament and being an independent. Give me the motivation.
I mentioned before the distrust of political parties. I also mentioned the state that the country is in. Over the last 7 years, maybe going into the 8th year now, I've worked in Unite Behind on state capture at PRASA. And that is one of the key things that pushed me into and my colleague saying to me, you have to stand as an independent candidate. I believe that our constitution guarantees three things which are critical. First and foremost, it says that South Africa is also a participatory democracy. Now, representative democracy is when we elect people. But throughout that period, every person in South Africa has the right to participate in lawmaking, in policy-making, and in decision-making that Parliament and any legislature has. Similarly, our Constitution guarantees participatory governance. So we have a duty as people who live in the country to say this. We want to know how budgets are put together. We want to know how they are spent. For instance, we've had a cut in the city of Cape Town of 60% of EPWP jobs, which has come through a national cut. How on earth are people not asked, and why are people not saying this is inappropriate? Why are you cutting here and not SAA? So, for instance, participatory governance is a critical part of it. The most important part of the Constitution for me is not the Bill of Rights. It is important. We mustn't get away from that. It's critical to have the right to life and dignity and so on. But in order to realize that, Section 195 of the Constitution sets out what public service should do and what public service should be. I've now watched the Standing Committee on Public Accounts since it was established. And it was very often one of the best committees. In terms of, and it still is, in being able to hear the Auditor General speak and present her reports and show where things are going wrong, whether at municipal level or whether at national level or provincial level. I want to go to Parliament to take people's voices back into Parliament, not my voice, but to do what the ANC did in 1994, and that is invite people in to give evidence. Any MP has the right to ask for people to be invited. Any MP has the right to get access to documents. Every MP has the right to attend any committee and ask questions as well as make a contribution. You can only vote as an MP on the one or two committees that you're assigned to. My job would be, and this is why I am going to Parliament, is to bring people's voices in and to bring progressive experts so that we can all learn together. But critical, I can't succeed if there isn't a movement outside. And I can't succeed if I don't work with like-minded MPs, other MPs. As an independent, I'm free to do that.
Well, it's interesting, you mentioned, I think, Scopa, right? Because I made a point even yesterday that sometimes the real movers and shakers in Parliament are not what we see at the annual State of the Nation address, but those that are in those standing committees, and they play a significant role. And I know many have suggested, Zaki Ahmad, that's exactly where you need to be. But you made the point about bringing people into Parliament, and you also need the support on the outside. So who would you bring in? How would you bring them in? And what sort of support do you actually have on the outside?
Well, my campaign has built several activist forums One is, for instance, the Disability Activist Forum. The experience that people with in our country, people living with disability have in our country, is one of horror if you're working class. And even if you're middle class, you struggle. And that is, I can tell you about Bonisile Silinga, who is about to have two legs removed, two legs amputated, but she cannot use a wheelchair because it can't get into her shack where she has lived since 1987. And so you have a situation where the children with autism sitting on the ground in a shack cannot find a toilet, get flooded out, scream when the lights go out. So building a disability forum at community level and linking it up with as many organizations dealing with people living with disabilities and bringing those voices into Parliament is what I would like to do.
Okay, and there's more, of course, yeah. Carry on, very quickly,
yes,
on the news.
Definitely. Yeah. Similarly, I think the other critical area of work is youth. The campaign has a youth activist organization called Youth in Action, and their slogan is, "We are not the future, we are now." And the main focus of their work is on alcohol substance use disorder. The first thing I'm going to do when I get to Parliament is to ask that the liquor bill be amended, the amended liquor bill be brought in as law.
Okay, put that on pause. I want to find out how. Put that on pause. I want to find out how. We continue chatting to Zaki Ahmad, who's now standing as an independent candidate. So basically, he wants to get into Parliament, but he doesn't want to get it through a party political ticket, but he feels strongly enough about the issues in the country to understand that he has to get into Parliament to effect the changes that he feels strongly about. What do you make of that? We'll take your calls in about 10 minutes or so. For now, let's get the news headlines with Greg Hose.
Quick look at the headlines. President Ramaphosa has concluded his working visit to South Sudan, where he met both the president and the first vice president. A security expert says the terrorism alert issued by the UK Embassy for South Africa was to create panic, and there's more than 30,000 teaching vacancies countrywide. I'll have all those details and more at the top of the hour.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, in central Johannesburg, the M2 eastbound has a crash reported at Crown Interchange, and due to that, the M1 southbound is queuing towards Crown Interchange. Chris Hani Road has heavy traffic through Diepkloof. The N1 northbound in Midrand is slow moving towards Samrad Road exit, and Eskampa Clearly Drive northbound in Pretoria has delays towards Mabopane Highway. In KZN, the N2 southbound has spillage cleanup just before Prospection exit, so lane closures are in place. No doubt quite a bit of delays. The M7 is queuing at Bel Air Wakesley Road Junction. The N2 southbound is queuing through Amanzimtoti, and Chris Hani Road westbound queuing at the N2 highway. In Cape Town, Marine Drive outbound is queuing at Sunset Beach. Veltervreden Drive in Mitchell's Plain is closed between Cedar Avenue and Spine Road, and Newlands Avenue southbound has heavy traffic towards the M3 highway, and Brighton Road in Kraaifontein is slow moving at the N1 highway. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
Yes, it is the final bulletin for this edition, Thursday edition. We'll kick off with rugby. Francois Venter will captain a new-look Sharks lineup against the Glasgow Warriors at Scotstoun Stadium in the URC. That's tomorrow night. The Springbok Insight Centre starts in midfield alongside Murray Costa as 2 of 7 changes in the back line from last week's Challenge Cup win, and that was over Edinburgh in Durban. Number 8, Nick Hatton, will make his URC debut in a completely overhauled pack with 2-time World Cup winner Vincent Koch and the standout performance Vincent Chituka and Sia Masuku, as well as Ethan Hooker, set to make an impact off the bench. Cricket news. Meg Lanning says her relationship with food and exercise spiraled and led her to a surprise international retirement. Former Australia captain Lanning retired in November 2023 after missing the summer's Ashes for medical reasons. She said she was running up to 90 kilometers a week and only eating 2 small meals a day. Lanning retired as one of the sport's most successful players and captains, leading her side to the 50-over World Cup glory in 2022, 4 T20 titles and Commonwealth Games gold in 2022 as well. She made her Australia debut in 2010, age 18, and went on to make 241 international appearances for her country. Golf now. The American John Catlin, he birdied the final hole to maintain his one-shot lead after the second round of the Saudi Open took place in Riyadh. Catlin shot a 4 under 67 at the Riyadh Golf Club to move to 10 under par and hold off surging Asian Tour veterans Lee Hotong and Scott Hend at the top of the leaderboard. China's Lee shot a 65, while Australia's 2016 rear Olympian Hend shot a 67 to finish the day tied for second at 9 under. Englishman Steve Luton on 64 and live player David Puy of Spain on 67 are tied for fourth at 8 under heading into tomorrow's third round. Tennis action. Elena Rybakina saw off a fight back from Veronika Kudermetova to reach the quarterfinals of the Porsche Tennis Grand Prix in Stuttgart. Third seed American Taylor Fritz moved into the quarterfinals of the Munich Open by beating the Spanish qualifier Alejandro Moro Canas 6-3, 6-1. Canas ranked 240. He beat Dominic Thiem in the previous round. Now Taylor Fritz will play the number 6 seed Jack Draper next. Athletics. It was a challenging headwind that put a halt to Akani Simbine's history-making aspirations in the 100 meters at the National Championships taking place in Pietermaritzburg. He faced gusts reaching 1.4 meters per second, despite his slowed pace in the semi-finals, clocking 10.27 seconds. His eyes are set on clinching a 6th 100-meter South African title. Grade 12 sensation Bayanda Walaza, with his unique windmill running style, and 19-year-old Abdurrahman Karim are the contenders. But Simbine seems unfazed by his rivals, and he's confident that anyone who wants to challenge him will have to break into the 9-second barrier.
What an impressive athlete he is, just say.
He is. And he's our very own. Even more impressive. And finally, another high-speed twist, this time in Formula One. Max Verstappen solidifying his racing future with Red Bull amidst paddock rumours and a cleared scandal involving team principal Christian Horner. As Verstappen gears up for the Chinese Grand Prix, he's chasing a remarkable 4th win in the season, navigating the so-called unknown with new cars on the Shanghai track. And it will be about quick adaptation with just one practice session before the sprint race. I'm sprinting out of here. More sport with, I think, Michael Abramson. Top sport between
6
7
o'clock,
and 8.
yeah. And I can tell you when we spoke about Simbani and you said it, and he's one of our own, right? And I have to tell, because listeners, well, in fact, I can see you because some of it, of course, if they go to SFM on the X platform, they'll see you visually. But those that don't know, you put your hand very close to your heart when you said that, right? I mean, literally,
right?
Like, he's one of our own, something like that line. So yeah, like you sort of pronouncing on the national anthem, something like that. Okay, we'll maybe see you tomorrow, depending on whether Tumi's in good health or not.
Economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
And we're having lots of pleasures about this and that and the other, what we have off here. In fact, we need to do like a backstage story of the show. Not what you see on air, but what you actually see off the air, because it's sometimes even more exciting. Lots of conversations that take place here with the entire team. My guest is Zaki Ahmad. We'll continue talking to him pretty shortly, but every day around this time we talk money with the MoneyWeb Market Update, and it's hosted, as always, by Jimmy Moyaha. Jimmy?
Good afternoon, Ashraf. Good afternoon to me. Good afternoon to all of the listeners. Yes, today we have an interesting show lined up. We're looking at PSG results. They reported their full-year financial results, double-digit growth in almost every metric there. So rather impressive set of numbers to dig into there. We're also going to have a conversation with Investec. They're doing a series around their Investec Mind series that they've recently launched. We're going to dip into that and try and understand what's happening there. Their latest episode is around grey listing, which has always been a topic of discussion for the last couple of weeks and months in South Africa, given where we stand on that. And then Thursdays, we usually have our SME of the week, and we're taking a look at a very interesting company in South Africa called Sunkin. A lady by the name of Dee Kutzer has invented or come up with clothing and apparel for children that protects them against the harmful UV rays of the sun. So we're going to definitely dig into that and try and unpack that. And then because we've been seeing the latest conversations from the Ster-Kinekor family around the possible Section 189 that they're going through and the closure of 9 cinemas and possibly a further 8 after that, I thought it might be a good idea to take a look at the state of the cinema industry post the pandemic. So I'm speaking to the CEO of the Avalon Group, which is a private cinema company that has a couple of cinemas around the country. We're going to dig into just how the business model looks at the moment, how much pressure it's under, and just understand the business side of managing a cinema franchise. But before we get to that, the markets have had somewhat of a better day as compared to what we've been seeing lately, except if you're looking at currencies, of course. And Henko Creer has been keeping an eye on the markets for us. He joins me now to do a quick summary of what's been happening in the markets. Good afternoon, Henko. Thanks as always for keeping an eye on the markets. We're finally back towards $85 on Brent crude. I'm celebrating that, and I'm choosing to ignore that the rand is at 19 rand 15.
Yes, Jimmy, I couldn't agree more. Good evening to you, Jimmy. Hello, Ashraf, to me, and good evening to all the listeners. Overall, it was a good day, because in the US, the Dow Jones at this stage 1% stronger, and the S&P 500 and Nasdaq trading 0.6% up, and European stocks, they finished in the green. That was the FTSE 100, the DAX, and the CAC 40, each about 0.5% stronger at the end of the day. And then the JSE gained 0.4%, and it closed at a higher level of 73,271 points. The industrial as well as the financial index finished 0.6% stronger, but the resources index was the one that finished a bit lower today, but only by 0.1%, not by a lot. Companies that had a great day, I would say, was British American Tobacco, 1.5% up. First Rand and Process also each 1.5% stronger. AB InBev gained 1.3%, and Naspers as well as Anglo, they each finished the day 1% stronger. But Richmond lost 1.5% today, and other companies also that gave poorer performances were Anglo Gold, Motus, and Implats. They all lost 2.5% today. Then we see Spar, Amplats, and Aspen. They were each 2% weaker, and Italtile and Truworths lost 1.5% each. Back to some good news. Companies that gave better performances were Oceana, which gained 6%. Shoprite finished the day 3% stronger. Tsogo Sun, Sun International, and Kumba each gained 2%. On the commodities market, the price of gold, $2,380 an ounce. Silver is sitting at $28.40. Platinum trading at $950, and palladium at $1,040 an ounce. Yes, like you said, the price of Brent crude coming down, which is very nice to see, now sitting at $85.50 a barrel. But unfortunately not the same picture for the exchange rate. You pay 19 rand 15 for a US dollar, then 23 rand 80 for a pound, 20 rand 37 for a euro, and 12 rand 30 for an Australian dollar. Bitcoin still maintaining its level of $62,500, and that is 1,240,000 rand. Jimmy, that's how the markets performed this afternoon.
Thank you very much for that update, Henku. I'm going to be looking at RCL. I've just noticed they've gone below 10 Rand again, and I'm interested to see how the share price is going to move after that unbundling of Rainbow Chicken that they plan on doing later this year or possibly next year. But we'll dig into those and other stories when we come back a little later on. For now, Ashraf, back to you and the team.
Thanks for that, Jimmy. Great show coming up after 6 and then sport after 7, right? But certainly the issues of Parliament and politics really important, but make a note of this too. In the heart of South Africa's coal-rich province of Mpumalanga, the Council of Geoscience pioneers the fight against climate change with the implementation of the Carbon Capture, Utilization and Storage Project, which is CCUS, right? Now, the CCUS technology captures carbon emissions at their source and securely stores them underground at carefully selected geological formations. This endeavor not only mitigates CO2 emissions, but also supports vital coal-dependent industries for South Africa's development. Near Leandra, the CGS has identified a site that will pilot this project as one of the developmental imperatives towards achieving a low-carbon economy. You got that?
The Royal Club says victory on home soil is non-negotiable, but Ghanaian outfit Dreams FC can smell maximum points as a dream come true. The capital of Egypt faces the capital of Ghana. This is the first leg of the Total Energies CAF Confederation Cup semi-final. Catch Zamalek Sporting Club up against Dreams FC live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4 this Sunday, 21 April at 6 p.m. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Hashtag We Love It Here. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
Top Sport with Michael Abramson.
Fairly young professional boxer who's got a fantastic career ahead of him. They call him the Destroyer. His name is Darren Rousseau. He hails from the Eastern Cape. Tell me about your nickname, the Destroyer. Where does that come about? Is that what your opponents feel like after you've dealt with them?
No, so it's actually something that my dad and I sat. We were struggling to come up with names, like what goes nicely with Darren Rousseau. So then my dad was like, yeah, let's just try out the Destroyer. Because that's what I've been doing when I was in amateur. So when we turned pro, we were like, let's try and destroy our opponents. So that's where the Destroyer came from.
Top Sport on SAFM. X at SAFM Radio and at Ashraf Garda.
I can tell you it's a huge management act, how we manage time between myself and my guest Zaki Ahmed, and of course getting your feedback as well. So let me do this. We'll take 3 calls, probably the most we can take for now. Not quite now, in about 5 minutes' time. Okay, so 3 calls, and if you get in, be short, sharp, to the point, because we need to get Zaki to respond to that. That's one. I'll take 3 voice notes now as well. Maybe just before I get back to Zaki Ahmed, and then maybe he can respond to those 2. So here's voice note 1.
Hi Ashraf, great intro there from Zaki Ahmed. Very impressed with him. Can you please ask him what's his assessment of GA within the Western Cape, particularly in line with their claim to excellent service and performance, while we see obviously the Cape Flats and Black Township remaining behind on this so-called excellent service and great performances at Cape Town.
Okay, that's the one. What I'll do, I'm going to play another. Then we'll get my guest to respond to that. Let's get another.
Good afternoon, SAFM. My honest opinion about this is politic environment as a whole. I doubt there's anybody that will be voted in power and then would satisfy everybody's needs, like building houses for everybody, providing free education, providing jobs. None of them can do that. It's all hearsay. So for me, running for president, it's just a power-hungry kind of competition. Nothing more, nothing less.
Okay, another one, power hungry. Let's get a third voice note.
I'm sorry, I was just saying that, so I'm listening to the statements that are being made, particularly the one that there's 30,000 jobs in the country, teaching jobs in the country. And my thing is, regardless of the availability of these jobs, right, we can't get these jobs, and we, including myself, being a young teacher, we cannot get these jobs because why? Because these jobs are for sale. And an interesting thing is that one of the provinces that were listed that they have the highest job opportunities is actually the province where people are running away from, saying they cannot afford to buy the jobs. KZN Department of Education, or rather the principals who are hiring, are charging teachers for jobs. They are saying to teachers, 50,000, the job is yours. Where do I get this 50,000 as a young teacher? I just graduated. I have no money. Right? And for those who don't have money, some have relatives, aunts, uncles, anything of that nature. They have connections. They know people in high places. And then people like us who don't have connections, who don't have 40,000, we are doomed. We are stuck working for private schools that treat us like we did not spend 4 years of our lives getting our degrees. So it's a mess. It's a mess.
Okay, clearly very, very disillusioned. It's a mess. It's a mess, is what that caller says. So my guest is Zaki Ahmad. Let me tell you what we'll do. We'll talk now non-stop up to 6 o'clock. I'll take 3 calls, not now, in a few minutes' time, maximum 3. But Zaki, we stopped it around news time, around the issue of the youth. And perhaps if I can ask you to connect your point about the youth with this call about young people and getting jobs, and your thoughts on how that can be remedied.
I really empathize with that young teacher. One of the things that has happened, in addition to the manner in which advertising for posts and getting them is a corrupt process, is that the government has cut teaching bursaries by 54% in a country where we need more teachers, because the median age of teachers is over 50, meaning that we don't have enough young teachers. So to come back to Youth in Action and substance use disorder, I want to agree with your caller that the Western Cape's working class has been systematically and systemically neglected by the DA government over a very long time. The fact that we have a better mayor now and a better premier is a good start. The fact that the city's infrastructure budget has gone up and is now larger than all the metros put together is very, very important. But that doesn't address the lack of dignity in informal settlements. That doesn't address the massive human settlements problem that we have based on spatial apartheid. And spatial apartheid is in every part of the country, but here in the Western Cape, especially because coloured is divided from African and white, and middle-class people like myself live in the city, the price of the rental costs in well-located areas is unaffordable to most working-class and middle-class young people. So young people on the Cape Flats, I went to canvass in Elsies River, Eersterivier, Delft, and Leonsdale. Mm-hmm. And in the areas during the day, it feels like zombie town. People are scared to come out. And essentially that is because of gangsterism and drugs. But the single largest drug that is causing a problem in our country is alcohol. In this sense that it takes money away from people. It leads to violence, domestic violence, violence in shebeens, taverns, violence on the streets, whether it's in Long Street, whether it's in Claremont. And of course, it leads to a whole range of social and health questions. So here we are in a situation where that is combined with then the drug economy proper, the illicit drug economy. So the legal drug economy and the illegal drug economy is causing a huge problem in our townships and communities. And the DA government has failed to address, even the cities failed to address, the need to control licensing, the need to enforce the rules to ensure that children don't buy alcohol.
And linked to this, Zaki, I mean, here's a question from Terence in the Northern Cape saying, I want to ask Mr. Ahmad, how will he stop gangsterism and the high level of drugs and guns in Cape Town and surrounding areas in the Western Cape? Every political party tried over the years and no one could stop it. So very related to your conversation. Go ahead.
So very, very quickly, your other caller spoke about people wanting to be president. I don't want to be a president. I want to be an MP that holds the executive to account. The people who claim they're going to give 400 million jobs, they're going to end gangsterism and so on. At the moment, Ashraf, I think anyone who says to you we can end gangsterism is not speaking the truth. They're not speaking the truth. What we have to look at is a whole long 20, 30-year program. Our biggest problem, apart from gangs, is that our police service functions like franchises of gangs.
Explain that here.
You know, I was part of I helped get the Khayelitsha Commission of Inquiry functioning. And I think there was more lawlessness from within the police than inside the community, structural lawlessness. And by that I mean knowing where crime occurs and not doing anything about it. Bribes being passed on. Dockets getting lost on a scale that you can't believe. And dockets don't get lost just because they get lost. They get lost because police very often sell them. In one of the cases that I was involved in, that of Lona Mlofana, it was found that I can't remember whether it was Zoliswan Konyana or Lona Mlofana, but the police assisted the escapes of the perpetrators. The police assisted the escape.
Okay, point made. I'm gonna push you only because I can see time's just crazy here, right? So here's the thing, right? What I want to ask. What I want to ask you specifically, right, in terms of therefore your role as an independent candidate, right, you obviously want to get elected, right? How far are you on that journey of actually getting the votes necessary that people will not vote for a party but vote for you to get into parliament, and then once you get there, to have the necessary alliances that you may lack if you're not part of political partisanship?
Right. This last Saturday, we had a fantastic rally in Khayelitsha of more than 3,000 people. What struck me there is it was a rally for volunteers, not so much a rally for the public. We didn't advertise it at all. It was simply the apparatus that our movements, the Disability Activist Forum, the Amachomba Activist Forum, the Queer Activist Forum, and the youth have built. So literally, we're bringing people out. But what is difficult is that the legislation has been built to make it virtually impossible for an independent to get elected. And that means that, first and foremost, I have to raise money like a political party. I have to be present in every voting district if I want to get elected against these political parties. Now, obviously, I can't. No other independent has the type of network that I have, that I've helped build with others through movements over the last 40 years. So the critical question here is the legislation has been set up to make people fail. I'm not going to fail. I'm not going to fail. And the reason...
Yeah, why?
Yeah, go ahead.
No, you said you're not going to fail. Why the confidence?
I think I have confidence in what I stand for. I stand for fixing the state. I said I work with any political party, but that doesn't mean I'm going to allow people to be dishonest. So when people say we're going to provide a job in every home, we're going to provide so many million jobs and so on, my job is to say you cannot do that unless we all work together to do one thing, and that is fix the state. We have a division of labor over who's going to look at the worst municipalities. We have a division of labor on who's going to bring Transnet back so that the fruit that's stuck on the farms, all the food that's stuck on the farms, can get to places where they need to.
All right. So you talk about fix the state, reclaim parliament, building our communities is absolutely key issues now. We've got about 3 minutes to go. So I think those points are punctuated enough, right? Here's the thing. I will take 3 calls very quickly. But before I get to that, how would you measure that you've been successful when all this is done, and we talk 5 years from now? How would you measure that Zakia Ahmad is achieved?
The most important thing I would like to achieve is for communities to understand what the Municipal Systems Management Act is, what the Public Finance Management Act is, and how they can use that to build community power. I would also like to be in a situation where I've contributed in a very small way to re-establishing a progressive politics that is non-racial and that puts working class people first.
And many may want to do just that. Right. Let me get to the callers now. This is what I'm going to do. We've got 2 minutes to go. I'm going to get 3 calls. I want you to be 30 seconds each maximum. Then I'll get Zaki to answer all 3 in one go. So really, you cannot be more than that because we just don't have the time. Matlakala, go ahead. Hi.
Hi, Ashraf. What I want to ask from Zaki, I just want to know what is his position when it comes to labor broking. Because labor broking is a modern-day slavery.
Right. Got that, labor broking. Sandile, go ahead. Hi.
How are you, Ashraf?
Thank you.
I understand he speaks on disability, but does he consider this pandemic of 35 and above unemployed disabled people? Thank you.
Okay, the issue of unemployed disabled people. Dumila, go ahead, 30 seconds.
Ashraf, I want to ask Mr. Zaki, how can he bring back the actual main reasons for the struggle, which is survival, to actual wealth, because now we are in survival mode. Everyone is crying for their rights.
All right, got that. Got that. 3 important questions. Zaki, you've got a minute to answer that. That's the time deadlines that we have as a country, isn't it, in many ways? Go ahead.
Indeed it is. I can only start by saying this, that unless the people who've just called in take power into their hands, start studying, and I don't mean in a formal way, I mean finding ways that they can get their MPs to work. At the moment, you have a constituency MP. They just don't work in your community. So for me, how do we get economic freedom? That is a question that I don't have an answer to. I really don't have an answer to, because it is complex. And politicians will tell you they have answers, but they don't. But I stand for a universal basic income grant, because we're going into artificial intelligence, we're going into roboticization. What's happening is poor people are fighting each other. 35-year-old plus people are saying we are being excluded. Yet the majority of people proportionately that are unemployed are under 35. Working class people are being pitted one against each other. It is not only over 35-year-old people living with disability who don't have jobs. Virtually every working class person with a disability does not have a decent access to work or to meaningful life.
Absolutely.
So my job is to hold people accountable.
Okay, that's where we're going to leave it. I'm going to lean on you, in fact, to maybe tweet out some of your additional views. Just tag myself and SAFM Radio. I'll gladly share that and even read them out to the audience tomorrow, because I think it's that important, okay? So Zaki Ahmed, before we end up, in terms of what you said about taking control of the situation, we'll end with the words of Muhammad Ali as our parting shot. And he said, "He who is not courageous enough to take risks will accomplish nothing in life." And there you are. Zaki Ahmed, risk taker, activist, now activist in Parliament and outside of Parliament. Best wishes for what comes up for you on May 29 and beyond. That's it. Thanks, Zaki. Appreciate your time.
Thank you. Thank you.
There we are, right? Zaki Ahmed, fascinating, and there's so much more to come. Do follow him and see what he says about a range of issues. Let's get the news now. Just go on 6:01. Here's Greg House.